I had a dream. The preparations for Killian's birthday were a bit hectic. I had to put in a lot of hours to ensure nothing fell short, thus I barely got enough sleep. I didn't even know when I fell asleep that day, but I was bone tired. It started like this. "I am sending you alone to the capital," Alpha Hawk said to his daughter. They were both dressed in black, but there was no sign of mourning in the atmosphere around them. "As my successor, you will get the opportunity to work closely with the Alpha King." She nodded to show she understood what he was driving at. "Do not fail this time." "Yes, father," Scarlet answered, seeming subdued. "This is the last opportunity. If you do not produce the next king, I will have to find a way to achieve what I want." The scene shifted so abruptly that I felt confused and disoriented, and then my throat went dry at what I saw. "Killian," I whispered. I did not register the chaos around me. My eyes were on my mate and the stain spreading on his shirt. "I gave you so many opportunities, but you persisted with your arrogance, and for what?" Hawk laughed. "Killian?" I turned as I heard my voice, and there I was, held back by the palace guards as my mate bled out right before me. "Let her go!" Blood spurted from his mouth as he spoke, and I saw hair cover his arms and then recede as he tried to shift, but there was a long silver spear impaling him to the throne. I have to do something. I moved in the dream, but there was not much I could do as I was not actually there. My chest hurt as I sprinted to the throne, trying to get to my mate, but I may as well have been crawling. "Killian!" My actual self continued to call out in a shrill voice, but all Hawk did was laugh. A new era has come for the kingdom, an era where competent men rule and not bastards born from slaves. Hawk mocked. "If indeed your line has been blessed by the goddess, don't you think that she would come down to save you?" He raised his head to the ceiling as if waiting for a sign, and then he continued to laugh. "Your kind have had this kingdom underneath your feet, simply because you have red eyes, deceiving us into thinking you are blessed, but you are a fraud, aren't you? Darkmoon has always been the true power of this kingdom, yet we had to swear fealty to our inferiors." "Ah!" he exclaimed, his face contorting as he took a step forward. Thinking about it puts a bitter taste in my mouth. "Alpha Hawk," my mate spluttered. "You will regard me as His Majesty Alpha Hawk the First." His eyes gleamed. The first monarch of the era of the liberation of all wolves. "Do whatever you want." He was fading away as I watched. But my mate. His eyes went to the side, and I turned again to watch myself struggle against a barrage of palace guards. "You will not witness the new era, but she must. History will remember your lineage as the impostors that held the kingdom hostage for centuries, but mine must be preserved." He waved a hand, and the guards holding me let me go, and I saw myself running to him, stumbling in front of him as I tried pulling the spear from his chest. It was made of silver, and it must burn. I almost felt the sting of the silver on my hand as I watched myself battle for my mate's life in third person. "I love you." Blood poured from his mouth as he spoke. You have been the best thing." "Stop it." Tears stung my eyes. "You can say that another day, but not now. You said you would tell me that every day, so tomorrow." Even as I blubbered, I could see the light fade from his eyes. "You can't die. You can't. I love you, and I am sorry I failed to protect you." "Killian, find Cedric." "Killian!" I exclaimed when his eyes started to close. "He knows what?" And that was the end. I watched my mate take his last breath, and mine hitched. My eyes darted around the palace. They all looked at me without remorse or regret. "Killian, you can't leave me. Please," I watched myself pull out the spear at last. "Please don't leave me." I watched myself shake him, but there was no response. "Killian, please, Killian!" The dream ended as my eyes snapped open. I was frozen in bed with my pillow soaked with my tears and my mouth dry. I looked to the side of my bed, but my mate was not there. My heart stopped for a moment. Then I flew out of the bed and ran out of the room. I tried to tell myself that it was all a dream, but I knew it was more than that. It was so clear, so vivid, that it became impossible to ignore. Unlike the dream, when I ran this time, my body actually moved as I followed the scent and the pull of my mate. Killian, I just had to see my mate. I had to hear his voice. I had to confirm, to see for myself. A burden lifted from my chest when I saw him. There were numerous eyes on me, but none of them mattered except the gaze of my mate. He was alive. I wanted to hug him, but the eyes boring into me became too intense to ignore. He was alive, and that was enough. That was enough for now. I wanted to leave, to not be a nuisance to him while he worked, but he came to me and he held me, and having my hands around him made me forget all about not bothering him. My chest tightened to the point of pain. My tears and snot wet his shirt, but he held me still. I kept saying things that made no sense, and he continued to hold me. It felt as if a heavy hand lay on my chest, pressing down hard, and then it felt as if I was falling. Overwhelmed, I clung to him tighter, scared that if I let him go for even a second, that horrible dream would become a reality. Even as breathing became increasingly difficult, I held my mate and then my eyes closed again. I was transported back to the same dream, watching my mate die in front of me, staked on his throne. When I felt as if it was coming to an end, it started all over again, and thus I was forced to watch my mate die in front of me time and time again. You? As I screamed, shaking my limp mate to open his eyes, to smile at me, or show even the faintest sign of life, my eyes fell on a woman. I did not know her, but it seemed the me in the future did. How could you do this to me? I screamed at the woman, pointing bloody fingers at her. My hands were coated in my mate's blood, and my wolf howled. It was the only way. The woman, too, had tears in her eyes. It was the only way I could protect you, so I took it. Forgive me. She bowed her head. Protect me? I screamed at her. We are true mates. You have killed me already. Her eyes widened. No, he said. He told me you are nothing but chosen mates, so his death would not affect you. If anything happened to Killian, I would follow after him in a year at most. We were bonded already, so our lives were tied to each other. How selfish you are, doing things to assuage your conscience and making decisions for me without thinking of how I would feel. I grabbed the spear stained with my mate's blood. You have always been a useless mother. It was clear what I was going to do with the spear. I saw myself step towards her, but she did not move. She did not even flinch as it pierced her. I am sorry, she said, gritting her teeth as I pushed the spear deeper. I thought I was doing my best for you, but I failed you. Her magic flickered and her appearance blurred as she stumbled, the effect of the silver hitting her bloodstream. The dream ended as I gasped. The first thing I did when I opened my eyes was clutch my mate's shirt. You are fine, he whispered, coaxing me to calm down, but I could hear his heartbeat wildly, and I felt the distress he felt. Or maybe that was me. You can't leave me. I was crying again, holding him as if he would disappear if I let go, sniffing and staining his shirt. I won't, I promise. His words did not reassure me. Amethyst? He tried to loosen my fingers that were almost choking him with how hard I gripped his shirt. When I did not let go, he hugged me, squishing me against his body until my grip slackened as I went weak in his arms. You can't leave me. The words were an unending chant, always followed by a gasp as my chest constricted, suffocating me. That's enough, he said. I love you so. How could I leave you? He caressed my cheeks. You have to. You have to tell me every day. You have to tell me you love me every day. It sounded selfish as I said it. Did I not doubt his sincerity when he said he loved me the first time? What rights did I have to tell him to repeat the words I first disdained? It may seem shameless to ask this of him, but I did not care. Shame was the last thing on my mind. I will shout it out for the world to hear if you ask me to. His tone softened, and my heart clenched. How could I doubt his love? If that is what you want, I will tell you I love you 10 times every day for the rest of my life, he muttered. No. He flinched as I let out a scream choked with horror. You have to say it every day, even on my deathbed. You cannot leave me behind. It was quiet after that. I struggled out of his crushing embrace to watch his expression darken. What did you dream about? He asked, and I felt bile rise in my throat. A part of my brain already started to suppress the dream. Although I just woke up from the bone-chilling nightmare, parts of the experience had already become distorted. I drew a blank when I opened my mouth to speak, but Killian sat beside me, rubbing circles on the back of my palm as I struggled to recount the dream. It took a while to get everything out, a long time and a lot of effort. I had to pull myself together to see that my mate was right in front of me, to see that he was not hurt. There was no blood and no alpha hawk. He was fine, but for how long? Cold spread inside me at that thought. "So in the future you saw I died?" he asked, and I nodded. I almost expected him to tell me it was all a dream, and I should not be worried. After all, I never dreamt of the future, but he believed me. That alone removed a boulder from my shoulders. "Hawk would go to any length to get the throne, it seems," he mused. He would even you." I stuttered, afraid of saying the word kill as if he would immediately fall down and die if I did. "He may have if you did not see the future." He gave me a small smile. "It's a wonderful gift," he muttered, "seeing the future. Now we can stop him." Could we? There was one thing I failed to mention. In the dream he had a witch by his side. His gaze sharpened. "My mother." "Your mother?" He frowned. "Why, yes. She has this magic that helps her change appearance, and she worked with him to kill my mate. We have to find her before he does." While fear and distress clouded my mind, he frowned, deep in thought as wheels in his head churned to come up with solutions. Crying would not change anything, only action would. I could not continue to cry while he came up with a solution on his own. "The coven." I tried not to mention my mother's coven to Killian after all this time, but now they may be helpful to both of us. They have searched for her for a long time, so they should be willing to help. "You are forgetting that the magic folks keep to themselves." He raked a hand through his hair. "Yeah, but I am one of them." He pursed his lips, his gaze sharpening. "We need as much help as we can get, and there is no way they would object to joining hands with us in order to find their sister. It is worth a shot." He looked unwilling, but thankfully, he did not object. "Just rest for a bit." Asking Crystal for help would not be a problem, but it never occurred to me that Alpha Hawk may already have my mother. Although I wanted nothing more than to continue to sleep, to see as much of the future as possible, I could not do that. Killian's birthday had come, and the entire palace had turned into a mess. I almost shed tears as people ran this way and that, trying to organize things for the Alpha King's birthday. It was my first time organizing anything like this, so there was a lot of last-minute rush. "Your Majesty, you have to get dressed." Ella and Sabrina rushed after me as I ran around the palace like a headless chicken. "Let me just check the kitchen. Had they baked the cake as I requested?" "How about the food? Did the caterers come to help out like I said they should? Did they decorate the throne room in the specific shade of purple that Killian liked?" I had to verify a lot of things, but I also had to get dressed as the banquet would start soon. If I did not spend the previous day crying my eyes out, I could have done a final check against today. "Leave it to me." Eliza appeared from nowhere. "You have to get dressed, so I'll go over the last-minute plans." They didn't let me agree or disagree. I was all but dragged away to get ready. After being scrubbed, massaged, dressed, and decorated, the urgency in the air started to get to me. "Ella, can you check if the doors have been opened?" The event would start in a few minutes, and I needed it to go perfectly. "You are so beautiful, miss," Sabrina gushed after Ella left. I gave her good distance these days after I heard she had been bought over, and she must have noticed because she too gave me space, but it did not mean she did not try to curry favor every now and again. Eliza came a minute later to inform me that everything was set and that the doors had been opened. I was nervous, more than nervous. This was the first event I ever organized as the Luna Queen, and more than anything, I wanted Killian's birthday to be hitch-free. While I glanced at my reflection in the mirror for the last time, a knock sounded on the door. Killian had to leave the room to allow the workers to move freely, and he'd arrived to pick me up. Eliza gave me a thumbs up as Sabrina rushed to open the door. I heard his baritone as he asked if I was ready, and my heart clenched. I wanted to hear that voice every day for the rest of my life. My heart skipped a few beats when he entered the room. "You look beautiful," he said as he offered me his hand. You too," I mumbled as we left the room. He chuckled and then silence descended. I let out a sigh of relief when we entered. I was both happy and amazed at how well things turned out. Everything was flawless and everyone smiled as we entered. My hammering heart slowly eased up. It was Killian's first birthday banquet, and it would be a disaster if things turned out less than perfect. "Happy birthday!" Everyone cheered when we took our seats. He was not grinning, but I felt his happiness course into me through the mate bond. A small smile tugged at his lips as the event started after a short prayer by the high priest. At the end of the event, I was more than exhausted. The weight on my shoulder for the past week finally eased, and the time came for me to present my gift to him. I had to do it in secret, as I was a bit embarrassed at how little my present was compared to the mines and buildings he had received from prominent people. It's small, but I handed over the present I prepared. As long as it is from you, then it is perfect. He pulled me into his arms and kissed me, wanting an entirely different present. He pulled at the ribbon holding my dress together as he kissed down my chin, but I shook him off. "It's my birthday," he started. "Shouldn't I get everything I want?" To my surprise, he pouted. "Yeah, I just have to say something." I wrung my fingers together. He prepared a splendid date to confess to me, but I like you. I like you a lot. I rushed out. "Is this a joke?" "No, it's just—" He had reason to think it was a joke. "It is not a joke," I answered firmly. If I did not say it now, it may take me another month to work up the courage to. And I wanted him to know how I felt because who knew what the future had in store for us. Life was too short to waste time second-guessing things and keeping my heart guarded as if I had someone else aside from my mate to give it to. "Since when?" he asked, and I swallowed. I truthfully did not know when all this started, but I knew for sure that I tried to suppress my emotions. I wanted to continue with the life I knew, as it was safer. It was safer for us to pretend. That way, I could prevent myself from being heartbroken. It was easier to shut my wolf down rather than agree with her. It was easier to pretend. Love was not something I was familiar with, not something I even expected. When we pretended to be mates, I did not have to second-guess myself. I knew where we stood, and even if things changed, and a time came when he did not need me anymore, I could move on with minimal damage. But with emotions, things changed. If I loved him and he did not reciprocate those feelings, what then? Emotions changed all the time, so even when he said he loved me, there was no guarantee that he would continue to love me the next day or the next month. I had to guard myself against disappointment, and I would be disappointed if one day he realized I was not worth his love and he took back his words. But it would hurt more if he continued to shower me with love while I continued to deny his sincerity. What if a time comes when it would be impossible to tell him how I felt, a time when we would be separated forever? It was better to love and be heartbroken than to continue guarding my heart against the only important person in my life. "It may have been when I met Eliza," I muttered. It was the first time I ever allowed myself to consider that I actually felt something for Killian. Watching my mate smile at another woman filled me with rage, and I remembered how much I wanted Eliza to disappear. I had not reacted so violently when I caught Noah with Bella. It was jealousy, and although I tried to deny its existence, it was there. Or maybe when you confessed to loving me. It was the first time it occurred to me that we could have a relationship filled with love and not pretense. We may have started out as fakes, but we were now mated, and it was impossible for any of us to wake up one morning and say we did not want the other. Or maybe it was on the day of my Luna ceremony. It was the happiest day of my life. The day I went from nobody to the queen of an entire kingdom. I remember how I felt that day, my heart bursting with emotions, with gratitude, knowing everything was thanks to Killian. It was because of him that I was able to change my fortune so easily. I was like a person that went to sleep in the gutters and woke up to a mate who already prepared a royal banquet in my name. I am not sure, but I know that it's been a while since I have loved you. I picked my words with care. It was a sorry excuse of a confession, and I hoped he did not doubt me as I doubted him. I cannot say when exactly it happened, but the thought of losing you has opened my eyes to the emotions I tried and failed to suppress. I hung my head. Compared to his confession, mine seemed like a joke. Compared to everything he had done for me, I had done nothing for him. Maybe I was not even worthy of his love. No, I am not asking about that. Since when could you read minds? He exclaimed. I blinked at him as he blinked at me, his face turning red. Mind reading? I blinked up at him like a fool. It's kind of cool, though. I jumped back when I heard his voice in my head. His lips did not move, but I heard his voice. It was so clear that I mistook it for him speaking out loud. When I broke eye contact, I could no longer hear his thoughts. Instead, I heard my heart pounding in my ears. They say some mates could hear each other's thoughts and communicate through a special mind link privy to only the two of them. But it was rare and was said to develop between mates who had been together for a long time and strengthen their mate bond to a certain extent. Could he also hear my thoughts? I looked up at Killian, but he pursed his lips. I cannot hear what you are thinking. His expression darkened. I feel a bit left out. He pouted for the second time that evening. Your turn will come soon. I laughed out loud, feeling light and free. The weight on my chest from yesterday loosened, and it seemed as if all was right in the world, or at least in my world. The worries of yesterday and of the future were gone. It felt like with Killian by my side, I could achieve everything, as if Alpha Hawk was a mere bug waiting to be crushed. When he kissed me, I felt warm from head to toe. It had been so long since we touched each other, and I felt a bit guilty, but I had no time to dwell on my guilt as he undressed me and guided me to the bed. In a few minutes, I was not capable of stringing two thoughts together. I was happy. I knew the future and thus could take calculated measures to change it. Unfortunately, I had only seen one aspect of the future. I greet your majesty, the Luna Queen. Scarlet returned to the palace the very next day. I hid my annoyance with a smile. With her and her father away, there was little problem in the palace, but the instigator just had to return. Scarlet, how are you? I asked for refreshments as she settled into a seat, although the last thing I wanted was to entertain her. Not fine, I am afraid. Her lips pulled up in a wretched smile. We have buried my mother and my father decided to stay back to take care of pack matters. It's surprising that Alpha Hawk can stay in the capital for so long when he has a pack to run. I spoke my mind, and her expression turned ugly, but she displayed a sweet smile in the blink of an eye. My father has many capable people, so no matter where he is, the work that needs to be done gets done. For example, I am here to pick up his work in the capital so he can focus on mourning, she explained, looking around my office. There was only a desk and a couple of chairs, so I did not know what she was looking around for, as if the layout of the place fascinated her. I knew she was here to try to get close to Killian for the last time before her father took more drastic measures, but I sipped my tea with a calm expression despite my insides curling. How could a father be so shameless as to pimp out his daughter? But then again, the daughter knew no shame. You know Bella? She asked when silence descended around us. I paused for a millisecond before setting my cup aside. Bella is quite a common name, I answered. Bella and Luna Grace from Red Lake Pack are currently in Dark Moon with my father. She did not bother beating around the bush. She is selling out your information. In fact, by tomorrow or next, my father plans to reveal that you are not the king's mate. They are saying you are Noah's mate, and the king may have killed Noah to silence the matter. I grinned as she leaned forward to whisper, although there was nothing funny. I expected to hear something of this nature since Grace paid me a visit, but to have Scarlet tell me this, seeming to sell out her father to get closer to me, amused me. If I was not such a cynic, and if I had not had a series of dreams that exposed their plots, I may have believed her. Oh, no, I muttered, wringing my hands together as I jumped out of my seat to pace around the office. It is not true, though. The Alpha King and I are mates. I pulled down my shirt to reveal my mating mark. Her expression darkened, but I pretended not to see. This is proof of our mate bond. What am I going to do now? I bit my lips. It is already too late. I am sorry I could not get here earlier to tell you. I feared sending a letter in case my father discovered it. She hung her head and her shoulders shook as if she was crying. What a terrible actress. Indeed, it was too late because the very next morning as many as 6 papers had carried the news that Killian and I were faking our mate bond. But the news was not as surprising as Sabrina suddenly quitting her job. I am sorry, but my mother has been sick for a while, and I want to visit her. Sabrina knelt before me as she sobbed. The head maid says I need to put in a notice before I leave, but I know your majesty will understand. My mother, if I wait even another day, she may. She reached forward as if to grasp my legs, but I moved them away. "No need to beg me, you can go." I waved her away. She raised her head with tears glistening in her eyes. Really?" She bit her lips as she looked up at me as if expecting me to refuse to let her quit. She had outlived her relevance to me, so it was time to let her go. "Then, this is a bit shameless of me, but in the future, can I get my position back? I would love. We will see." No way in heaven or hell would I let her continue to work for me, but I did not want to drag things. She jumped to a stand and flew into my arms for a hug, thanking me nonstop with an open expression. I admired her cunning. It is a nice strategy to leave the door open on your way out. After she left, I went back to work. Going through accounting books was tedious, but thankfully the butler was efficient and his working method quite plain. After going through the books for last week, I went back to planning a get-together for the 7, now 6 Lunas of the 7 pillar packs of the kingdom. I read their names one at a time, and I knew without a doubt that hosting them would be akin to pulling teeth, but this was something long overdue. It was customary to host such important women right after I became the Luna Queen, but they were, in a sense, my enemies. Their mates hated my mate. Thus I expected no warmth from their corners, which made it difficult for me to look forward to the event. Eliza came to visit shortly after. "Your Majesty, I need a job." She sat with her back straight and her teeth tearing into her bottom lip. "You do not even have to pay me. I am willing to work for free." "Why?" I watched her fiddle with her bracelet as I spoke. "Isn't your family filthy rich?" "I need a reason to stay in the capital." I nodded, although her reason made no sense to me. "My father is quite protective of us, and he wants me to go back home with my mother when she arrives next week, but I do not want to." "I am sure your father has good reason to want you to return home." Her family relationship made me curious. They all seemed like a tight-knit group. Even Jacqueline, that beat-up palace guards without thought, seemed docile when with her sister. He thinks the capital is a jungle that he has to protect me from. "The capital isn't rosy," I murmured. The heart of the kingdom, the capital, was filled with all sorts of political strives and schemes. "It may not be rosy, but it is the best place for me to learn. I want to succeed my father, but he believes I am a flower that would get trampled on or devoured by hungry wolves if he lets me out." She sighed, her stiff posture relaxing. "I don't want to worry him, considering how much Jack already worries the family. I want to be the daughter that he does not need to worry about, but I would hate for my cousin to take over the pack. It would be the equivalent of throwing away everything my father has worked for. There is no guarantee that he would make you his successor just because you stay in the capital," I pointed out, but she shook her head, dead set on her goal. "If I work with you, he would not be able to send me away. This is my chance to prove myself to him, or else he may continue to see a little girl in a princess costume every time he looks at me." Thus Eliza became my assistant. While she took over the planning of the Luna get-together, I dedicated my time to sleep, not out of laziness, but out of a need to dream. I had to see more of the future. It was a desire that almost choked me these days, and the only way to see the future was to sleep. "I have heard you are always sleeping these days." Killian caught me as I settled into bed after working for a few hours. "Are you overworked?" The way he looked at me made my insides warm. It was a relief to be able to admit even to myself that I loved this man. When my wolf purred in satisfaction at his touch, I also smiled. There was no need for me to scold her, to tell her not to get attached, as there was no fear anymore. My heart threatened to burst every time I saw him, and I accepted it as what it was. I liked him. I liked him a lot. Killian. The way I breathed his name was embarrassing, but he said nothing, only gathering me into his arms and inhaling my scent, his nose buried deep in my neck. "How are you?" "I am in quite a dilemma." He kissed my mating mark and my toes curled. "What is it?" I asked in alarm, pulling away from him to stare at his face. He smiled, but my paranoid mind only saw a forced, pained expression. "Did anything happen?" "There is news circulating the capital that we are fake mates." I heard the news even before it spread, and I expected that with time the stupid rumor would fade. What I did not expect was for my mate to be so bothered by rumors. Alpha Hawk spread such a useless rumor. These days his moves have become more and more desperate. I once thought that the more desperate he became, the more mistakes he would make, which would make him easier to deal with. But that did not seem to be the case, if my dreams were to be believed. With all the things I have on my plate, this is an unwelcomed addition. He let me go and stretched in bed, letting out a small yawn. With time, some fools will take the rumors as fact. Currently, Hawk's people have taken this as an excuse to attack me on every side, and if he continued to fuel the rumors, more and more people would doubt us. It is the last thing I want. Should I speak to Luna Grace? I asked, getting out of bed to massage his knotted shoulders. No, let me handle this. I did not argue. Focus on establishing your relationship with your mother's coven. Although I had sent a letter to Cedric, there was no response yet. How can you be so beautiful? He thought, and I looked away with warmth exploding all over me. He chuckled, grabbing my hand when I stopped massaging. What are you thinking? It was a question he asked often these days. I am thinking of how else I can help you, I muttered. I feel so helpless, knowing you are doing all the work while I sleep and hope to have a useful dream. Stop that, he scolded, pulling me back into bed. Who in this kingdom knows the future? He asked and I shrugged. I can ask Mother Crystal, but... He cut me off. You are the one who sees both the past and the future, even the present. Without you, I would be in the dark about my brother's death and about the future Hawk is gearing towards. He grabbed my chin when I tried to look away. You are the only reason I know what to prepare for, so even if you do not have any more dreams about the future, you have still been the biggest help to me, all right? Yeah, all right, I agreed without believing him. He should not have to shoulder the burden of our future alone. I am the Alpha King. It is my duty to shoulder the burdens of this kingdom. I blinked as he refuted my thoughts. It's weird hearing you respond to things I did not say out loud. It was his turn to blink. My heart stuttered as a smile transformed his tired features. We fell asleep in each other's arms, and when I woke up, he was long gone. Going back to work, I encountered Mary. She bowed as if there was a stick in her back, preventing her from bowing properly, and when she raised her head, she tried to school her expression, but she could not mask the hatred in her eyes. I have been appointed to fill in as your maid for the time being, she spoke through gritted teeth. So in the end, rather than find ways to get her to work for me, Scarlet sent her over. Mary was in charge of training me when I entered the palace as a maid, so I trust she will guide you well. I expect you to respect her, as disrespecting her would be the same as disrespecting me. I admonished the 5 girls gathered in my office with Mary behind them. Yes, Your Majesty, the girls chorused. I looked up at Mary to see her frowning. I bet she did not expect to suddenly be the leader of a bunch of girls when she just started working for me. Our eyes met, but she did not lose her frown, and I breathed out a sigh of relief. She did not look at me with hatred this time, but with interest. Mary was smart, so if she didn't already know I was trying to buy her favor, she would figure it out soon. How she would proceed with that knowledge would determine whether Ella was right. Right, you can all leave. In the future, Mary will instruct you on my behalf. They bowed themselves out, Mary hesitating for a moment before following behind them. A short while later, I got out of my seat and stretched out on the couch Killian sent over earlier in the day. It was time for me to sleep. Almost as soon as I closed my eyes, I dreamt of Mary. She made you the head of her maids? Scarlet seemed surprised. Mary nodded, about to say something, but Scarlet cut her off with a laugh. How naive. Get closer to her, okay? Yes, Miss Scarlet. Mary nodded like a schoolchild. Just call me Scarlet or Scar like my friends do. She was good, I would admit. Scarlet knew how much Mary valued her, and what better reward could she give Mary besides a seat at her idol's side? Mary's eyes lit up, and I felt a sense of satisfaction. She was still fully dedicated to Scarlet. I would be wary if she switched sides as easily as Sabrina did. I spent more time sleeping that week than I did doing anything else, but unfortunately, I did not dream of anything relevant. Cedric never replied to my correspondence, so I wrote to the leader of the coven, and I got news back that she was ill. Frustration and apprehension plagued me, so when I slept, instead of dreaming of another prospective future, I only dreamt of my mate dying as Hawk's laughter raised the roof. The day of the Luna's gathering approached, and for me, it was like a day of reckoning. The venue was the garden of the Apple Palace, which traditionally should have been mine, the Queen's Palace. A table was set and decorated with flowers, and the dishes were bright and colorful. Rather than hosting a dinner party, I chose a garden get-together, as I was already stuffy enough. I did not want to add the pressure of a closed gathering to my problems. Rose, one of my new maids, kept me informed of how and when the guest arrived, and the last person to arrive was the filler for the recently deceased Luna of Dark Moon. I did not even send Dark Moon an invite, so who came? Was it Scarlet? Rose did not know the identity of the woman now seated in the empty seat set aside as a sign of respect to the late Luna. I even planned to hold a minute of silence for Scarlet's mother, but there was someone in her seat just after she died. Naturally, I panicked. All the women at the table rose as I approached the table, and my steps faltered when I saw a familiar face. A sturdy hand caught me before I made a spectacle of myself, and I turned to see Jacqueline dressed in a warrior's uniform. I raised a brow and she shrugged. "His Majesty has appointed me as your personal guard for today," she whispered, but her revelation was not as shocking as the woman smirking at me from the seat which should have been empty. "We greet your Majesty, the Luna Queen." Only one woman gave a perfect bow as I took my seat. I saw Eliza and her mother. They looked like sisters. "Please sit," I instructed the women, already feeling my heart race from my stomach. I wrung my hands together under the table as all the women stared at me. For formality, I would appreciate a quick introduction. I had memorized the names of all these women, but I did not know them by their faces. There was Luna Helen Elias, who wanted to bury me with her gaze. Luna Hestia Bale, with her gentle and dignified air. Luna Esther Fraser, Avery, Janet Edith, and then there was Luna Grace Howard with a gloating smile. "You know me already, Carrot. Oops, I mean your Majesty." She covered her mouth, yet her eyes laughed. "I am under the care of Dark Moon for the time being, and Alpha Hawk sent me as a filler for his dear mate. Although she is gone, she remains in our hearts." She ducked her head and pretended to wipe a tear from her cheek. Luna Helen, who was seated closest to her, gave her a side hug and muttered unheard words into her ears. I felt like I had walked into a battleground, and there were 6 women brandishing their claws at me, while the 7th looked like she wanted no part in the battle. "Thank you all for coming," I forced myself to say through a tight throat. "There is no need to thank us," Elias's Luna cut in, her gaze sharp. "It is our duty as the Lunas of this kingdom to gather like this, although we all wondered why it took your Majesty so long to invite us." "Oh, don't blame her Majesty. She must be unused to this kind of gathering, so she put it off for as long as she could." Esther cut in to defend me with a sweet smile that would only fool a child. "Not used to this kind of gathering? Why not call me a worthless Omega?" "The work of the Luna Queen is tasking. I am learning the ropes. It is quite difficult, as there is no predecessor to learn from." Helen's gaze sharpened even more. If her gaze sharpened any more, she may cut me. As you all know, Lady Cordelia was a disgrace to the monarchy and refused to carry out her duties, so she was ousted. Helen stiffened, and I fought down a smile. Traditionally, a gathering of Lunas like this was meant to foster unity between the Pax and the royal family. The women would try to curry favor from the Queen, while the Queen pretended to be magnanimous to make sure there was no bad blood between the monarchy and these powerful families. Fortunately or unfortunately, I did not have to act out that script. There was bad blood already, and as Killian had instructed me, I was to damn them all. If anyone looks down on you, treat them like dirt, unworthy of staining your shoes. As a member of the royal family, you must not allow anyone to look down on the monarchy. "Queen Cordelia," Helen started, red in the face. "Who is Queen Cordelia?" I cut her off. "I am the only queen in this kingdom." Arrogance came so naturally to me. I chuckled, thinking of all the people who accused me of being stubborn and arrogant in the past. "Are you not being too arrogant right now?" Grace exclaimed. A nasty expression graced her face as she stared me down. Her mission here was clear, but would she win? Only if I let her. "Luna Grace, who are you to speak out of turn?" Of everyone at this table, it was clear she did not belong. You are seating in a dead woman's chair and raising your voice at your queen. What queen? She flew out of her seat, but Helen dragged her back down. My brows raised. They seemed to have something planned. A gang-up? Your Majesty, your words are truly harsh, Helen spoke up. Even if my sister-in-law acted out of emotional grievance, do you think it is right to mock her like this? She sacrificed a lot for this kingdom, and you would have learnt a lot from her guidance. She gave me a disgusted look, as if I had missed out on a tutor that could transform me from trash to gold. Lady Cordelia's business has nothing to do with me. His Majesty decided her fate, and she was the one to provoke him. I shrugged. What good is a royal that refuses to carry out their duty, puffing out with arrogance while publicly shaming the monarchy? You could have learnt a thing or two about dignity. I raised my brows at Janet's quiet muttering. With her mud-brown hair and enormous nose, she seemed to hide in the shadows of the other bullies, but I suppose her cue had come. What did you say? I asked as she wiped the corner of her lips. Nothing. She sniffed without looking my way. They came for battle, and in no time the battle line had been drawn with me as a one-man army. It was going to be a long event. I felt it in my bones. There were snide comments here and there, from how awful the king's birthday banquet was, to how the refreshments being served were subpar. Grace commented that she had better in her village pack, her words, not mine. Avery, a fashion designer, nitpicked my dress. It looked cheap. It was unflattering. In fact, it was an insult for me to wear such a dress to a meeting with such dignified women. Her Majesty would not know any better. You know, considering her background. Edith said with pity in her tone, The goddess is truly amazing, mating a maid to the Alpha King. What a dramatic change of fate. It is truly an inspiring story for all the ordinary wolves out there, hoping to climb up the social ladder without putting in any work. I fought back tooth for tooth, but now everything they said seemed childish and not worth replying to, so I sipped my tea and hummed in response to their nonsense. Mated to the Alpha King? Grace snorted at the side. Oh, have you heard the rumors, Luna Grace? Helen asked. It seemed their play had started. I sat up straight, watching as Grace's eyes lit up. Who hasn't heard the rumor? She shook her head, sparing me a glance. I am surprised that His Majesty acted so shamelessly. Watch your mouth. They had insulted me to the point where it became tiring, but would they dare slander Killian in front of me? Grace continued, as if I had not spoken. You know, Carrot, ahem, Her Majesty is from Red Lake Pack. Carrot? What sort of name is that? Goosebumps spread on my back. Carrot. It was a name I tried my best to run from, a symbol of an identity I wanted to bury forever. It was one thing if people out there gossiped about me, but to gossip about me at a table I set, they were truly cruel. Oh, you did not know, Helen? The other woman flinched as Grace called her name without regard. Her Majesty's birth name is Carrot. I should know, since I am her Luna. There was a collective intake of breath, and my chest felt itchy. Luna Hestia gave me a sympathetic gaze, but I looked away. I had enough authority to throw Grace out of the palace, but I needed to see what drama she came to act out. I needed to see and examine all of Alpha Hawk's cards as much as possible, and this was one of them, so I kept mute. I kept mute when she called my mother a whore who slept with someone else's mate and came to Red Lake to seduce her mate, and promptly abandoned me. Her eyes twinkled as she had everyone enraptured. I listened as she told everyone about how I fooled around with an old alpha and how her son came back and discovered we were mates. She told everyone how I ran away and then suddenly became the king's mate, leaving her son devastated. She ended it all with a heart-wrenching sob about how her son was still missing till today. Her pupils trembled, and as she looked at me for the umpteenth time to weigh my reaction, I saw her true colors reflected in the depths of her eyes. I shivered, reminded of Noah and his sinister gaze. The table was silent after that. Everyone wore different expressions, from Hestia's surprise to Helen's satisfaction. By tomorrow, the rumors circulating would be worse, for sure. Is this true, Your Majesty? Edith was the one who broke the silence. I turned to her, and whatever she saw in my eyes made her look to Helen for backup. It was surprising to hear His Majesty suddenly found a mate, and everyone doubted then. This is the second time such doubts have surfaced. Are you really the king's mate? Helen's words were obvious and her voice was loud. Do you understand what you are doing? My voice dropped low. Helen stared me head on and Killian growled. The disrespect to my wolf was too much. I may not be an alpha, but I was above her, and that steely, unmoving gaze could be interpreted as a challenge. I am simply asking your majesty a question. I nodded slowly, trying to calm my nerves. Even a saint would be furious if they were to be judged and condemned, made fun of like these women had done to me for the past 2 hours. Silently, I pushed the neckline of my dress to the side to show my mating mark. A mating mark can be faked, Helen insisted. She came prepared. It was as if she thought she could humiliate me the way Cordelia, the former queen, had been humiliated, and satisfaction glimmered in the depths of her cold eyes. Let us make a bet. I leaned back in my seat. Proper ladies do not gamble, Edith sneered. Have you not heard from Luna Grace? Even I felt the danger in my haughty tone. A familiar, chilling cold crept through me and coated my words. My insides felt empty, like an abyss of nothing but darkness and chilling cold. I am a bastard child, not a lady. Does it mean she is right? You and His Majesty are nothing but pretenders? Killian paced in the darkness, spreading inside me as the women berated me, their eyes boring into me, waiting for me to surrender. I raised my chin. We will make a bet, and the goddess herself will settle it. Avery took in a sharp breath, and Edith gave her a glare. The 7 of you have accused your monarchs of being nothing more than liars. I remembered my dream then, how Hawk laughed as Killian bled out, how he called him a liar, telling him how he would tell the kingdom of my mate and his lineage being nothing more than impostors claiming to be blessed by the goddess because of their red eyes. I had a mating mark, proof that I was Killian's mate, but they questioned it. They could fan this rumor and make it the truth, and no matter what, Killian and I would be seen as fakers. Who better to clear up this rumor than the goddess who bestowed the mating mark? I do not doubt your mating with the king, your majesty. It was the first time I heard Luna Hestia speak after introducing herself. Me too, your majesty, Avery interjected. Right? I turned my gaze to Helen. You have accused your monarchs of being liars, so we will take this matter to the goddess temple. The high priestess will verify whether or not I faked this mating mark. I will immediately leave the capital if it turns out to be a lie. If not, Helen's gaze wavered. If not, the 5 of you will pay with your lives for blasphemy against the monarchy, someone exclaimed, but I kept my gaze on Helen. Tomorrow. Your Majesty, someone yelled. Tomorrow, I will send a message to the oracle. The oracle was the high priestess, the highest-ranking person in the temple, and the only one in the world who conversed with the goddess like her friend. Very few people actually got to see her, but I would seek her out, even if I had to throw around the weight of the monarchy to get an audience with her. There is no need to go through such drastic measures. Helen broke eye contact first. The air around the table became charged. It seemed even the insects around the garden held their breath as my temper boiled. Who the hell did this woman think she was? It is not your place to decide what measures I will take. I am the Luna Queen, not you. You cannot decide things at a table I am on. I watched her stiffen. Forgive me, she gritted her teeth. It was foolish of me to be so brazen. I turned to Grace, whose eyes had turned to frost. Someone has to take responsibility for this. She did not flinch as I glared at her. Grace, you started this. If I dig a bit, I am sure I will find that you had a hand in promulgating this rumor about His Majesty and I. I have spread no rumor. All I have said is the truth, and you cannot deny that you are Noah's mate, so how did you become the king's mate? Can you swear before the oracle that you were never Noah's mate? Is it possible for a person to have 2 true mates at the same time? She remained calm, pushing, trying to back me into a corner. You are right. I felt bitter laughter bubbling in my throat. It is impossible to have 2 true mates at the same time. Her gaze lit up. Noah was my mate, I affirmed, and the silence became deafening. For me to have a mate after Noah, you should know that my first mate must have rejected me or died. Her pupils trembled. And what a ridiculous death he died. Even chickens have more memorable deaths. At least we offer their blood. You bitch! She sprang out of her seat. Your Majesty! Jacqueline jumped into action as Luna Grace attacked me. Killian, I was thinking of something, Orion busied himself with arranging my desk. In reality, he was making a mess while avoiding my gaze. "Sit down and stop making a mess." I snatched a file from his grip. "Why are you suddenly nervous?" He perched on his seat. "This may be the last thing you want to hear, but—" He took a deep breath before rushing out. "Alpha Hawk a salsa named Sylvester." "Slow down and repeat that." I massaged my temples. "Alpha Hawk, his name is Sylvester." "So?" He winced. "You were looking for a Sylvester." "I have thought of it, but it is impossible for Hawk to be her father." "Is it impossible, or is it just distasteful?" Orion probed, and I shrugged. "Can you imagine having Hawk as a father-in-law?" I shook my head, but a thought occurred to me then. In the future, Amethyst saw Hawk had her mother working beside him. What if? It was a distasteful thought that blew my mind, but what if, just what if Hawk was her father and her mother had been hiding with him all these years? "It is the most distasteful thing I can think of," Orion responded with a grimace. "But there is a possibility." The popularity of that name has waned over the years. So far, I have found less than 20 men who go by that name. More than half of them are too old to have a child, Her Majesty's age. One of the 3 around 50 has a true mate, so I am looking at either Sylvester or a merchant who frequents the capital for trade. "Invite him to the palace, then," I said. "The merchant, that is." "You also mentioned a daughter with red hair." I hurled the documents in my hands. I mean, we have not searched everywhere yet. There may be other men with such a name. Then find them rather than approaching me with inconclusive deductions." I snarled at him. In truth, I had long thought of Hawk, but it had to be impossible. I wanted it to be impossible. He fit the description, but he was right in front of us. I had hoped even, that if we searched thoroughly, we would find someone who fit the description better than he did, but to have someone else mention him gave me a headache. "For the goddess' sake," my wolf snarled as I denied the possibility. "Goddess, please? Wasn't it too late to pray?" The goddess could not give her another father if Hawk was indeed her birth father. I wanted Amethyst to find her family. I saw the longing in her eyes when she looked at the bales. I would do anything in my power to help her find her parents, as long as they were on my soil, but if it was Hawk, there was no way she would be happy to be reunited with him. And if he found out about her abilities, he would use her. Why does it have to be this complicated? I scrubbed a palm down my face as my aide announced my next visitor. Scarlet sashayed into my office, and for the first time I saw her adult face bare of makeup. "I greet your Majesty, the Alpha King." She bowed, her expression blank. "Have a seat." I waved her over, and she seemed surprised. Thankfully, she took a seat without asking questions. "Did you bring the report?" I asked as she settled into a seat. "Yes, but before that, I brought you something." I watched as she placed a bottle of alcohol on my table. I wanted to toss the bottle as soon as I saw it. "The last time we drank together, you accused me of attempted rape." She had the audacity to flush red. She sent me to the front of the battleground because of that single lie, and she merely flushed when I mentioned it. I never returned home from that battle. From there, I was shipped off to the Alpha Academy. I shuffled between the academy and the war front after that. "I am sorry." She bent her head. "I want you to know that I recognize my wrongs, and I will make amends for them. Amethyst should have told you." "You call that name with a lot of audacity," my wolf snarled at the disrespect to our mate. "Has she not told you? Her Majesty and I are friends now. I promise you, I have repented. My father brainwashed me all these years, but I am done being his pawn, if you want." "We are not here to discuss personal matters." I cut her off. I noticed the dynamic of their relationship had changed. Why else would my mate have gone to see her off after her mother died? "I understand, Your Majesty." After that, we worked in silence. It was unpleasant working with her. "Should I be the first to congratulate you?" She murmured, cutting me off as I questioned the badly prepared report. Half the time, she was either staring straight ahead or looking at me with strange eyes. "Congratulate me for what?" I snapped, getting out of my seat to open the door. My guards were positioned around me all the time, but if she made a false report, their testimonies would be rendered invalid as they were my personal guards. Her cheeks flushed when I opened the door wide for every passerby to see. "I have heard that Her Majesty is with child." My body froze. With child. 1,000 different scenarios flashed through my mind and my heartbeat sped up. My palms became slippery and I found my hands running through my hair. A baby. I snapped back to reality when my senses returned. If my mate was with child, I would not be hearing it from anyone other than her. Amethyst cannot be pregnant. I frowned. Until last week, it had been a very long time since I touched her. Even if it happened last week, it would be too early to tell, but why did my heart refuse to slow down? A daughter that looked like Amethyst would not be bad. No, it would be great even, more than great. A child between my mate and I? What do you mean she cannot be pregnant? Scarlet blinked at me. She has been sleeping a lot lately and had put on weight, so... If I knew the many ways my words could be interpreted, I would never have answered her question. Did I not just tell you that we are not here to discuss personal matters? I snapped at the wench, and she promptly shut up. After I finished pointing out the dozens of things wrong with the flimsy excuse of a report she brought to me, she left with a demure bow that irritated me to my core. Should she be found in a ditch outside the capital? No, that would only give Hawk an excuse to strike. A while later, anger slammed into me. Anger that did not belong to me. I remembered Amethyst was hosting the other Lunas today, and I knew they would give her trouble. With time, the anger got to my throat, almost choking me and leaving my heart hot and stuffy. Then it felt as if I was plunged into darkness as cold spread through me, biting cold that made me grit my teeth and my wolf snarl. My nails bit into my skin, drawing blood as I clenched my fist. Find her. I was out of my seat before my wolf even spoke. I got to the venue of the get-together at the same time as the witch guy. Carden, was it? What is this? I growled as I watched Jacqueline subdue a strange woman who already dumped wine on her and was shaking a fork at my mate. I turned to my mate as she gradually rose from her seat. Our eyes met and I heard her voice clearly in my head. I want her blood. I turned to the woman and my wolf reminded me of the bastard that was my mate's first mate. Who is this? Cedric was snarling at the woman who, despite everything, was still threatening my mate. How did she get here? She was not on the list of invitees, so who let her in? She came as a representative of Dark Moon. Alpha Hawk sent her. Luna Hestia responded. Ah. It would be good to send her to her son right this moment, but it would be even better to use her against Hawk. Chain her with silver. She cursed as she was dragged away, and for a brief moment our eyes met, and I felt goosebumps on my back. This woman was trouble. My mate looked thoroughly exhausted as I took her hand. Cedric, you finally deemed me important enough to respond to. She gave the man standing at the side a dry smile. I am sorry, but your mate warned me to cease all contact with you, else my life would be at risk. I winced at his blunt words. That week turned out to be one of the worst periods of my reign, and for the first time, I saw the signs of the insurrection my mate dreamt about. How is Mother Crystal doing? I asked Cedric. He chanced to glance at Killian before responding. She is aging and thus losing control of her magic, he said. Is there anything we can do for her? I offered out of courtesy. You can return to the coven, he blurted, making Killian growl. It will make her happy on her last days. When I saw her, she didn't look anywhere near death. I couldn't help but frown. Cedric was a man who would do anything to get me to join his coven, whether or not it hurt me, so I did not believe his words. Is that how it is? Killian asked with a deep frown. Will Amethyst also lose control of her magic as time passes? Yes, Cedric answered without pausing. It is one of the many reasons she should return to the coven. I grabbed the nearest thing to me and flung it at his face. It ended up being a couch pillow. Shadows enveloped the pillow before it fell to his thighs with a gentle thud. Shut up, Cedric. My lips curled when I missed my target. You are so deceptive and manipulative that I cannot even believe a word you say. Is Crystal even sick? I looked him up and down, but he barely blinked. Yes, she is ill. While the body ages, magic does not, so it becomes harder to handle. I may have exaggerated a bit, but it does not mean she is not ill. He continued to gaze at me without remorse. Why are you against joining our coven? Have I become invisible? Killian growled. Your Majesty, you have not become invisible, but I believe this decision is entirely up to Amethyst. He shrugged. Cedric, I exclaimed in horror as my mate let out a terrifying growl, cur coating his arms. How could he court death with a straight face? Rather than watch Killian tear him to pieces, I flew into his arms, tackling him back into his seat as he half rose. "Amethyst, let me go." His tone was level, but the voice was not his. His eyes became impossible to look into as they blazed a bloody red. "Deep breaths," I urged my mate. Cedric seemed to have come down from his courageous high as he sunk his teeth into his lower lips, sitting up straighter. "I am sorry," he apologized with a grimace. "I did not mean to disrespect you." He bared his neck as a sign of submission, and only then did Killian's wolf relax. "You seem to have a death wish." Killian hugged me to himself when I tried sliding off his thighs to get back into my seat. "Who are you to call the Luna Queen with such disrespect? How dare you try to separate my mate and I?" It was an unexpected sight, but Cedric hung his head. "I am desperate," he admitted with a sigh. "We need a spirit mage, and I am acting out of that desperation." "I am not joining your coven. Even if I had plans of joining, you ruined them the minute you used your magic against me. Who in their right mind would want to be in the same coven with such a distasteful person?" The longer I spoke, the more anger boiled inside me. This man really made me sick for weeks and pretended to treat me for his own gain. He was the kind of person that would stab someone in the back and pretend to help them bandage their injury while causing it to rot. "Why do you need a spirit mage?" Killian asked when Cedric pursed his lips at my harsh criticism. "That," he hesitated, "that is a coven matter which I cannot discuss with outsiders." I glared at him. "You are forgetting who I am," Killian said, the corners of his lips lifting in a smile that could only be described as ferocious, like a hungry wolf who had found prey. "I let you go despite what you did to my mate, which should, at the very least, cause your head to roll, if not the heads of your entire coven." I pressed my lips together, forcing myself to breathe as the pressure in the air dropped. I had to remind myself that he was not angry at me, that he would not hurt me, but being this close to him, feeling the anger bristling just beneath his skin, made it difficult to breathe. No matter how many times Killian smiled at me, he was still the Alpha King, and he was still a warrior. If he exploded, I could not be sure that I would not be caught in the middle of the disaster. "Think twice before you speak to me." Cedric nodded as Killian's tone turned cold. "Now, to my question, what do you need a spirit mage for?" "For strength," Cedric muttered. "Over the years, the effects of our collective magic have waned, but with a spirit mage, the coven will be stronger." He scrubbed a hand down his face, his form blurring. I got up quietly to close all the windows in the room. With a spirit mage, Grandmother Crystal would not have to suffer so much in her old age because a spirit mage can lend her strength and even stabilize her magic. Unfortunately, no matter what, I could not join their coven. It may benefit my magic, but to join a coven would mean giving up everything I had to live in hiding with the witches. "That, I am sure you know it is impossible for me to join your coven," I muttered, thinking of Crystal. She was the closest thing I now had to a mother, but we did not have a relationship that would make me consider giving up anything for her sake. "But if you need a shadow mage so badly, you can join my pack," Killian cut Cedric off. "We have a spirit mage." Cedric blinked. He opened his mouth to speak, but Killian continued. "Consider it carefully. It is no secret that we want to join hands with witches, so this would be mutually beneficial for both parties." "Thank you, but it is impossible." Killian shrugged at Cedric's flat refusal. "Suit yourself. Now for today's business, we need to find my mate's mother before she falls into Hawk's hands," he said. "Is there any magic that changes appearances?" I asked. "I had a dream and there I saw my mother, but she looked nothing like the portraits, but then I did not know how to tell someone who was desperately searching for my mother that I killed her in the future. In the future, I saw she died and the magic faded, so I saw her real appearance. Cloaking magic." I flinched as Cedric flew out of his seat. "It is used to conceal things, and if your mother is hiding her appearance, then she may be concealing her very essence, but it is not permanent. Besides, where could she have?" He trailed off, stroking his jaw as he muttered to himself. His brows furrowed deeply. Killian and I shared a look as he began to pace. "You are certain you saw the future?" Cedric finally returned to the present. I nodded, and he frowned. And in this future, Aunt Victoria died? I nodded again. And this man, Hawk, was it? He had a hand in her death? I paused before nodding again. I will have to inform the coven about this development. We have searched for her for a long time, but if she is in hiding and not willing to be found, then it is best we end our search. That was what he said, but he did not look or sound like he had any plans of ceasing a search for a spirit magician. We have reason to believe she is in danger. Killian said, "Were your ears blocked, or did you not hear that she died in the future?" Cedric flinched. "How do you know that Hawk does not have her hostage as we speak?" "What?" Cedric and I exclaimed. I turned to look at my mate. Hostage? I never thought of that, and he never mentioned anything of that sort. If Hawk already had his hands on my mother, then the future may be set in stone. We are investigating the matter. Killian avoided my gaze. I am not saying he has her hostage, but it is a possibility we should not rule out. But I wanted to ask why, how, when. Questions bubbled inside me, but I kept them down. If Hawk had my mother hostage, it would be because of me. Did he discover my identity and use it to blackmail her? Considering my dream, it was a likely option. Yes, you are right, Cedric conceded. She may be in danger. We must find her. How? Why did you never mention that to me? I asked Killian after Cedric left. He pushed his hand into his hair and leaned back in his seat, his eyes gazing everywhere but at me. What are you hiding? Thinking of him keeping secrets from me made me unexplainably bitter. Remembering how secretive I had been in the past made me too embarrassed to be angry. Then I did not trust him, and I felt it was best to hide things. If he was hiding things from me now, he must have a good reason, but I hoped his reason was not born out of distrust. Stop looking at me like that. He was about to push his hand into his hair when he paused, choosing to fold his arms across his chest. I am not sure, so there was no need to mention it to you. I nodded as if I understood, but a sudden chill had spread inside me that made me wonder if I had caused an unknown rift in our relationship with how I acted towards him in the past. What if he did not trust me? Stop overthinking. This time he did not stop his hand from clenching his hair. The strands had grown longer than he usually let them. Do you know Hawk's first name? He asked out of the blue. I pursed my lips before shaking my head. Why would I know his first name, and why was it relevant? His first name is Sylvester. So, I asked as my stomach turned violently and my breath hitched. Sylvester. I thought of that name and its possible owner at least 10 times a day, so it wasn't as if I did not understand what he was implying, but I refused to believe it. I wished I did not even understand his implication. I found myself on my feet in a second, with my head shaking and my heart trembling. No way, I muttered to myself, bringing a hand up to my tight and stuffy throat. If Hawk was really my father, then I may truly be unfortunate, and my mother must be a foolish woman brimming with bad decisions. We do not know for sure. Killian stood, pulling me into his arms when I started yanking at my hair like a deranged woman. I knew you would react like this. He sighed, caging both my hands behind me. It is not definite, but so far, he is the only person who fits the description. There is still a high chance that he is not the one. He did not sound like he believed himself. But it makes sense, I choked out. He had my mother in my dream. They may have been together all this time. She may have abandoned me and her coven to snuggle up with such an evil person. Or he may be keeping her hostage for her powers. No, he did not hear Crystal and her sisters talk about my mother and how much she loved this strange man who may be Hawk. She loved him so she would have gone back to him after she abandoned me in Red Lake. Perhaps I was a hindrance to their love. I had so many questions that I wanted to ask my mother, but the more I thought of her, the more I never wanted to see her. My curiosity was the bane that led me to this point. If I never looked for my mother, I would never have found out about my father. I would prefer to be in the dark for eternity than to have Hawk as a parent. A thought occurred to me, and I swallowed. If my mother had a hand in Killian's death in the future, then she might have had a hand in Seth's death in the past. I wrenched myself out of Killian's embrace and fell face first into the couch, burying my head underneath a pillow. I remembered when I first met Killian, then when he announced me as his mate. It was because he wanted nothing to do with Hawk, but this would not only mean that he failed in shaking off Hawk's hand, but also that he may have tied himself to a woman whose family killed his brother. What are you thinking? His weight sank the couch as he tried to pull me up, but I resisted. My resistance, however, was a joke compared to his strength. He lifted me from the chair as if I weighed nothing more than a scarf, but I refused to look him in the eye, scared he would hear my thoughts and realize he made a mistake. My heart clenched. I was a walking representation of what he wanted to avoid from the beginning. Amethyst. He gripped my chin, forcing my gaze on him. I closed my eyes to hide my thoughts, and I heard him sigh. He may not be your father, and even if he is, I promised to protect you, did I not? I would not let him hurt you. That was the last thing I was worried about. Slowly, I opened my eyes to see ruby red ones peering into my face. He was close enough for me to feel his breath on my face. I swallowed, taking a stuttered breath as I thought, "Won't you hate me?" There was silence in the room as he continued to peer into my eyes, and I wondered if he did not hear me. My stomach knotted up and cold spread inside me. I wanted to hide, to bury my face in his chest and hide from his clear gaze. I wanted to hide from his answer. My eyes snapped shut as I tried to evade his gaze, which his grip on my chin did not permit me to. This was the problem emotions posed, but it was too late. I already let down my walls. I let myself feel something, and now my heart trembled worse than my whole body did. If he turned his back on me now because of my family, what would I do? I already gave him my heart. If he rejected me, I just realized you are not very bright. My inner thoughts paused as I tried to process his words while my wolf snorted. I opened my eyes to see red ones with a blazing glare. Did I or did I not tell you that I love you? He almost growled, his grip on my chin tightening. Answer me. He snapped, and I heard the traces of an alpha's command in his tone. You did, I choked out, feeling tears gather in my eyes. The way he glared at me made my heart beat faster than it did when I thought of him abandoning me. Then why are you thinking nonsense? Are my words worthless to you? Or do you think of me as a liar? He snarled in my face, his hot breath fanning across my cheeks. No? My wolf lowered her head in the face of Killian's anger. Then why would you think I would hate you? Is my love so shallow that it would dry up because of something as small as your father? I ended up closing my eyes again. The rage in his tone made me shiver. I was scared, terrified of his accusations that made it seem as if I doubted him. But I did. Nothing would hurt worse than Killian abandoning me. Look at me. He shook my head, the command in his tone clear and impossible to ignore. My eyes snapped open. From now on, you are not allowed to look away from me. I need to hear the nonsense going on in your head. I nodded with a swallow. Whether or not Hawk is your father does not change anything. I wanted to nod, I almost did, but it was hard for me to accept. But you never wanted him to have anything over you, I reminded him in a small voice, terrified of the storm swirling in the depths of his eyes. If I am his daughter, if, he stressed, if you are his daughter, I would protect you from him. Do you think I would sit back and let him use you? I swallowed as he spat the words out with a cold glare. I love you, Amethyst, whether you are Hawk's daughter or not. I would love you even if you grew horns. I would love you even if you never loved me back. Even if I develop amnesia, loving you is not something I could forget. No matter the scenario or circumstance, I would love you. Do you understand me? He glared at me as he professed his love. Yes? My skin heated, but I did not dare evade his gaze. Good, so in whatever scenario your silly mind conjures, you should know my love is a constant. As if dealing with the possibility of being Hawk's daughter was not enough, a strange rumor spread about me. People were saying I was barren. What even is this? I massaged my temple as I flung the newspaper down. Eliza looked from me to the paper and back at me with a worried expression on her face. It is just a useless rumor. I am sure His Majesty is dealing with it already. I pinched the bridge of my nose as she tried but failed to comfort me. Killian had so much on his plate. The weight of the entire kingdom rested on his shoulders, and he could not even take an hour's break from work. He slept less than 6 hours every day, and if he so much as took a few hours off work, the entire affairs of the kingdom would be paralyzed. He just ascended the throne, and even then, he had to clear the 60 days backlog of work waiting for him for the days the kingdom had no seating monarch as we mourned his father. His workload should be reducing after he cleared off that backlog, but in reality, it was increasing by a staggering amount. When would he catch a break? He can't solve everything. I looked down at the wretched newspaper with a glare. Killian would beg to differ, but even if he had the power to solve this, he should not have to take on yet another responsibility. Before I said another word, there was a knock on my door. Eliza answered it and returned with a piece of parchment. "Ignore the rumors. I am getting things sorted." The words were written in the familiar writing of my mate, and I felt even more dejected. Who printed such a thing? I'm going to visit them. I got out of my seat, but Eliza's next words had me falling back into my seat. "There is rumor that there will be a protest, so I would not advise your majesty to step out." I almost gaped at her. A protest? There were never peaceful protests in the capital, only riots. It is only a rumor, but it is better to be safe in the palace than to venture out and get caught up in a mess. There was something she wasn't saying, but I knew it had something to do with me, this protest. "This rumor, do you know how it started?" She evaded my gaze for a second before sighing. "Yesterday, the palace was abuzz with news of your barrenness. There was mention of how you gained weight, and then someone said they heard His Majesty say it is impossible for you to be pregnant, so they took it that you were barren, and your Majesty and His Majesty were hiding it." I blinked as she explained the situation to me. It is no surprise that there are spies in the palace, and I'm sure one of them took the news out. Killian and I had never talked about children. Although we had been mated for months now, there was never any pressure to have kids. There were so many things to be settled that I never even thought of kids, but now I was being accused of barrenness. Another knock sounded on my door, and Eliza went to open it again. She returned with her sister, who had annoyance written all over her face. "For now, I will be your personal guard, Your Majesty." Jack gave a short bow. "I initially planned on returning home, but now that I see the nonsense happening in the capital, I can't leave you alone." Eliza pinched her secretly, and she turned to her sister with a glare. "What? Did His Majesty assign you as her personal guard, or did Her Majesty select you?" Eliza asked. "No?" Jack frowned and Eliza facepalmed. "I am volunteering my service. This palace is crawling with bugs, so it is best I protect Her Majesty. Who knows if the guards here will not point daggers at her if given the chance." My heart stuttered at her apt words. The buffoons who call themselves guards here were so quick to accept Hawk's order the other day, one would think he was the king. As she spoke, she had already taken a seat opposite me. "Your Majesty, I am sorry for my sisters." Eliza bowed with a grimace. "She is right. There is no trusting anyone in the palace." I waved away her apology, feeling my heart tremble. The guards in the palace were under Hawk's control. What if we could not change the future? What if my mate still fell under Hawk's spear while the guards who were sworn to protect him watched? Bugs. I felt my skin crawl with apprehension. There were so many people here who did not want my mate and I to be here. They did not recognize us as anything and would not hesitate to join in if a rebellion ever broke out. For the third time, there was a knock on my door, and Scarlet rushed in before anyone let her in. She seemed to be rushing towards me, but in a flash she was on the floor, her hands restrained behind her, and Jack's knee pressing into her lower back. Scarlet let out a screech, and I blinked in disbelief, my brain too slow in processing the scene playing out before me. "Let go of me, you bitch!" Scarlet struggled, but aside from being an alpha, Jack was also trained as a warrior and had fought in numerous battles, so there was no way for Scarlet to get out of her hold. "Who are you, and how dare you barge into the Luna Queen's place?" Jack growled. "I am her friend. Unhand me, you brute. Amethyst, tell this idiot to let me go." Scarlet shouted, struggling fruitlessly. I watched the whole matter for a brief minute, resentment rising in my heart. There was no way that Scarlet and her father did not have a hand in the rumors about me. Thinking of these people being my relatives made me gag. I almost threw up in my mouth as I met Scarlet's gaze. "You can let her go, Jack," I said, then added, "please," when Jack did not budge. Scarlet dusted her dress with a furious glare at Jack. What is the meaning of this? How dare this lowly thing tackle me like that? Is it my fault you were so easy to tackle, and Alpha's blood is truly wasted on you? Jack taunted. Miss Scarlet, it is rude and highly disrespectful for you to barge into the Luna Queen's office like this. Who are you to lecture me? The redhead snarled. You are just as stupid and vulgar as your sister. To my surprise, Eliza, who was always prim and proper, let out a terrifying growl when Scarlet insulted her sister. I am the Luna Queen's personal aide, and my sister is her guard. Who are you, a shameless woman, to approach the Queen? Unwilling to be caught in their fight, I cut them off. Stop! Eliza took a step back as I exclaimed, and Scarlet looked visibly startled at my exclamation. Scarlet, is anything the matter? Why did you rush in like that? I could not hide the annoyance in my tone. I wanted to drive her out, cuss at her even as my blood boiled upon seeing her face, but that I had to continue my pretense with her until I got a bit of useful information out of her. I came because I heard the rumor. I am sorry. It is all my fault. She bowed her head at an odd angle. It was difficult for such a proud person to bow to another, and it showed in the way she never bowed properly to me. How is it your fault? Did you spread the rumor? I asked as Eliza opened her mouth in a retort. No, but I was the one who asked about your pregnancy when His Majesty refuted it. Of course, I know he did not mean that you are barren, but he suddenly got up to open his office door for no reason. Someone passing must have heard. She sniffed with her head bowed to show her false remorse. I do not know why His Majesty replied that way or why he opened the door at that very moment. She raised her head and pretended to be horror-stricken as she looked at me. No, of course, I am not blaming your mate. She rushed out. I fought down a sneer at her fake acting. Did she think anything she said would make me doubt Killian? The man whose love for me was a constant? He even said he would love me if I turned into a demon. I may have doubted him in the past, but not anymore. Scarlet would have to try harder to create a rift in my relationship with my mate, yet I played along. Why would he do that? I pretended to be enraged. It almost seems as if he did it on purpose to raise rumors about me. The sisters in the room blinked, their jaws falling open at the same time. He created this mess, so he will fix it. I cannot believe he was so careless with his words. I pressed the base of my palms into my eyes, pretending to sniff. Scarlet spent 15 minutes trying to calm me down, apologizing on Killian's behalf as I continued to rage. I even shed a few tears. In the end, she left after promising to help cull the rumors. When the door closed behind her, Eliza and Jack turned to me with matching expressions of disbelief. Your Majesty, Jack started. Are you a fool? Are you an idiot? Even the blind can see that she is trying to create a rift between you and His Majesty. To my surprise and Eliza's horror, Jack clasped the front of my dress and lifted me out of my seat while I blinked in amazement. Jacqueline Adela Bale, who do you think you have your hands on? Eliza screeched, her hands on her hips and a panicked look in her eyes. Unhand Her Majesty, she shouted, taking a step forward as if to wrench me out of her sister's grip. Oh, I am sorry. She let me go in a flash and I fell back into my seat like a sack of potatoes. Your Majesty, I am sorry for my sister. She lacks both manners and sense. Tears of frustration clouded Eliza's eyes as she apologized. Please think of her as an overgrown child and do not punish her too harshly. Hey, I am right here, Jack exclaimed. Jacqueline Adela Bale, Eliza screeched again. You are right here watching me apologize for your impolite behavior, and you have the nerve to complain? Can you stop calling my full name like my mother? I am older than you, in case you have forgotten. Jack bristled. Stop acting like a child and start apologizing for manhandling the Luna Queen. A tear slid down her cheek as she pulled at her hair, chancing a glance at me as if expecting me to explain to her sister that it was not okay to grab people by their clothes and shake them. I am sorry, Your Majesty. I just thought to reason with you. Jack exclaimed, and Eliza finally had enough. She tackled her sister, but it would take more than someone Eliza's strength to make the warrior fall. She merely barreled into her and started hitting her. For a minute, I forgot everything falling apart around me and laughed out loud. It was rare to see Eliza lose her cool, as she always sat poised and dignified, but she fought with her sister like a child. Her cheeks puffed out as she focused on causing damage to Jack, who blocked her moves with an irritated glare. The sisters fought and bickered while I laughed at them. It took a few minutes before Eliza let her sister go with a frustrated huff. She bowed yet again and apologized for making me witness something unsightly. Yes, I understand. I hadn't been queen long enough to understand or enforce the boundaries between everyone else and me, so I only felt surprise and amusement when Jack lifted me out of my seat, but Eliza seemed to think it was a crime grave enough to warrant a beheading, so she apologized 100 times, glaring at Jack, who shrugged after her second apology. As for your question, no, I am not foolish. Jack snorted after I spoke. You believed that ugly, two-faced, good-for-nothing bitch, she said. Do you think Killian would spread false rumors about you? Even a blind man can see that the man is crazy about you. He would just about claw out his eyes that cause you any damage. What my sister is trying to say, Eliza rushed to cover her sister, is that Scarlet is clearly faking. She's up to something, so you should not believe that His Majesty is behind the rumors. She is a bad actress, I agreed. And no, I don't believe anything she says. Eliza breathed out in relief. Truthfully, I was surprised when you started to cuss at His Majesty, she muttered. I don't know how or why your Majesty chose such a detestable person as a friend, but in my humble opinion, it is best to be careful of her. She is worse than a snake. Don't worry, I know that already. As someone who had to live with the repercussions of all the lies Scarlet spread about me, I knew better than to trust her. I am a better actress than she is, so it's fine. The sisters did not believe her acting, but they believed mine. I hoped Scarlet continued to see me as someone naive enough to fall for her acting because it would be easier to deceive her the way she wanted to deceive me. I could not work after that. I went to the garden for a walk to clear my head. Jack followed after me, but I did not feel comforted by her presence. Eyes followed me as I walked, and I heard the palace staff whisper as I passed. Although I did not hear what they said, some words floated into my ears such as barren and heir. What do I do? I muttered to myself, clenching my fists at my sides. Just beat them up. People who gossip behind others' backs like these ones are weak and can easily be beaten into submission, Jack suggested. If violence could solve this, do you think Killian would have spared a moment of hesitation? I asked. If only things were so simple. If only people could be beaten into submission as easily as Jack claimed, I would not mind whacking a person or two. I was tired, but I did not dare think of being tired. If I was tired, then what about Killian? He was at the center of it all. A few rumors would not hurt me, but he was the one who I saw taking his last breath in my dream. He had to think of ruling a kingdom that did not even value his leadership while ensuring he stayed alive and also protecting me. I need to do something, I muttered to myself. If I was tired, then Killian was near death with his workload. As we walked, I caught a glimpse of a maid scurrying away, so I asked her to call Scarlet. Scarlet entered my office a few minutes after I ended my walk. She didn't look happy to be summoned like this, but she pasted on a fake smile as she took a seat. Is anything the matter? She asked. Are you still worried about the rumor? I have sent a letter to the publishing house that printed that trash. It should be down before the end of the day. No, that is not the problem. I pretended to be distraught. There are people who must have heard what my mate told you in private, and they started this rumor. I want to punish them, and I need your help. Do you remember anyone you met on your way out of my mate's office? Her eyes narrowed, and she pressed her lips together, pretending to be deep in thought, although I could see her teeth gnashing. This woman hated me so much, she could not even pretend to like me to save her life. No, I passed so many people, and I was focused on my work, so none of them stuck out for me. I see. I gave her a wretched smile. If you cannot remember, then it is fine. You may leave. I am sorry for summoning you without notice. You may summon me whenever you want. After all, we are friends. I'll help you in any way I can. Let me think about it for a while. I may remember something. Yes. Thank you. I stood up to escort her out. I was unwilling to have Scarlet end this sham of a friendship because of her pride, so I made sure to seem as weak and useless as possible to fan her illusion of superiority. "Jack," I called my new guard who was sitting at the side. "I would need help from the Bale family. Your mother will help me hire around 20 to 30 maids to work in the Emerald Annex, and you will help me select warriors to act as the palace guards there." "Why do you need maids and warriors?" she frowned. "I am starting a purge," I declared. "Rather than wait for someone to stab me in the back, I would send them all out. I would gladly send out all the maids, even if it meant I had to clean the entire palace myself. Starting with the Emerald Annex, I'm going to replace all the palace workers. My mate ruled this kingdom from the Emerald Annex, so I should start there. The very next day, I assembled all the workers in that annex. One of you spread a false rumor about me, which is now circulating the kingdom. Who did it?" Everyone looked at me as if I was crazy. "I'm giving you a chance to confess now, else all of you will have to bear the consequence." Unsurprisingly, no one stepped forward to say anything. "All right, since none of you will confess, you are all fired. There will be no severance payment or any chance for redemption. From today, you are no longer palace workers." The effect was instantaneous. Their stoic expressions broke, and they looked at each other, waiting for an explanation. Murmuring broke out, and then a man who made my blood run cold walked towards me. "Your Majesty," I swallowed as he spoke. "You may dismiss the maids so casually, but you don't have the authority to dismiss palace guards, I am afraid." He stopped in front of me with an arrogant stance, and I trembled. He was one of them, one of the men who stood with Hawk as my mate bled out. My palm connected with his cheek in the blink of an eye. The murmuring died down as I hit the big burly man trying to intimidate me. "You." He seemed on the verge of cussing, but held himself back. "Hitting me doesn't change the fact that you don't have the authority to tamper with palace security. She does from now." Killian pulled me flush against his side. "Your Majesty," he bowed his head. "The palace security is—" "Were you or were you not just fired?" His tone turned to frost. "The palace security is no longer of any concern of yours." "But, Your Majesty, may I ask why the sudden termination we have sworn an oath to protect?" "You are in no place to question the Luna Queen's decisions, or have you forgotten your place?" Killian growled. "And now you are guilty of opposing the monarchy." He smiled, the gesture cold and calculating. Just like that, it ended. The maids and palace guards in the Emerald Annex were all laid off, and the mouthy guard was dragged to the dungeons. "What are you doing?" Killian asked as we walked hand in hand into the palace. "Carrying out a purge," I answered. The palace was quiet after the sudden layoffs. Even my maids moved about without making a sound. Mary stared at me more often in the days that followed, and I could almost hear her internal struggle. It was good that she did not switch sides at the drop of a hat, but I was beginning to get impatient. "Mary, how are the other girls behaving? I hope they are respectful towards you," I said as she picked out my accessories for the day. She was now the head of my maids, so she didn't do much work aside from ordering the other girls around. It meant I didn't see her as often as the other girls, but I didn't mind. "They are respectful," she muttered in a quiet voice, her usual hostile gaze and tone gone. "Good. If they give you any problem, feel free to disciple them as you wish. You have full authority over them." She nodded with a swallow. "I trust you to train them well, and I hope you will work to the best of your ability. Think of this as a test, all right?" She paused her movements, her gaze snapping to me. "The palace's headmaid is old. In the future, we would need someone to replace her." One of my earrings clattered to the floor. "Miss, are you saying I could be the headmaid of the entire palace?" I shrugged. "It all depends on how you behave in this trial period. If your behavior is satisfactory, then sure, you can be the headmaid." She trembled as I spoke, and I saw the greed in her eyes. Being the head of the palace workers was not a position people climbed up to. It was reserved for those chosen by the Luna Queen herself, and they were usually recommended by high-ranking Lunas, or they followed the Luna Queen to the palace from her maiden home. The current head was a peaceful woman, although the previous queen brought her in. I didn't mind her, but she couldn't work for another decade, considering her age and health. I will work hard to be worthy of that position. Having everyone in the palace save from the royal family under her feet would appeal to her more than staying as Scarlet's dog for the rest of her life. Good. I expect a lot from you, I said with a small smile. Tell me, what are people talking about these days? It was an irrelevant question, as people were undoubtedly cursing my name in every corner. Everyone is talking about the recent layoffs in the Emerald Annex, Mary answered demurely. It was quite a drastic character change from her usual snarling one. Are they now? I chuckled. Those people had the guts to gossip about me. I am the Luna Queen, yet they slandered my name. Isn't it right for me to send them on their way and fill the place with my own people? I asked. This is my palace, so anyone that cannot respect me cannot stay here. Mary had nothing more to say after that. She was deep in thought as she helped me dress, mulling over my words. She left with the other girls after a while, and I stretched out in bed. It was not good to sleep, considering I just woke up, but according to my recently drafted schedule, I had to take a short nap now. Eliza did not know why she had to add so many nap times to my schedule, but she added them without asking a question. Thus, less than 2 hours after I woke, I climbed back into bed and closed my eyes. Sleep didn't come immediately. I tossed about a bit and considered giving up. My workload was still manageable despite my recent nap break, all thanks to Eliza, but it didn't mean I did not have work to do. Yet I could not give up. I had to see the future. I had to be prepared for what was coming. Almost immediately after sleep took me, I saw Hawk. He was seated with 3 unfamiliar men, and he had a frightening expression on his face. She sent them away? He asked, and the men nodded. How cheeky. The glass in his hands shattered. Proceed with the plan. She seems to have a lot of free time to sleep and lay off people indiscriminately, so give her work. I woke up after that, straightened my clothes, and walked to my office. His plan would be revealed in less than a day, so I had to be prepared. I sent Killian a note about the dream and started to attend to my business. By evening, it was clear what Hawk had planned. The main streets in the capital were filled with protesters. Even in the palace, I could feel the grounds tremble as angry men and women stomped their feet in protest on the streets around the palace. If I put my ears down, I could hear their angry words. Burn the witch! The goddess is obviously angry with the imposter. First, pretending to be the Alpha King's mate, and now this. If she cannot give us an heir, then what use is she as the queen? Throw out the man beside the king. A barren witch can never be our queen. I smiled despite my heart aching. I tried to act calm as people ran around trying to control the situation. Scarlet sat in front of me with a badly hidden smile while Jack clenched and unclenched her fists, swearing at random. Eliza looked on the verge of tears. Will you go out and talk to them? Scarlet offered, and Jack cursed a bit louder. Talk to them? Talk to them about what? Do you want Her Majesty to be lynched? If Eliza did not hold her back, Jack would have pounced on Scarlet. If she explains things to them, they may calm down, Scarlet insisted. Yes, I thought of that too, but Killian has ordered me to stay put, so I can't leave the palace. I bent my head. I didn't want to cry in front of these many people, but I was hurt. The same people who called me blessed the other days. The ones who lined the streets with flowers and prayed for me to live long on the day of my Luna ceremony were now the ones cursing my name and calling me an evil witch that jinxed the kingdom. I was now the cause of the bad weather, the reason rogue sightings were increasing, and the reason why someone even had a cough. They called me bad luck and clamored for my head. My heart wept. I could not deny being hurt. Everyone looked at me as I swallowed a choked sob, forcing a smile. I was not fine, not even close to being fine. Why did I have to be so unfortunate? And how would I come out of this mess? I even started to wonder if I was barren. Killian and I were not inactive, so how come I didn't have a child in my belly? Where did I go wrong? Your Majesty, Eliza called me with tears gathered in her eyes. It will be over soon. His Majesty has sent out some troops, and there was another problem. My existence seemed to burden Killian more and more. He had so much work to do, but he still had to clean up my mess. I sent everyone out of the office and laid my head on my desk, fighting back the tears. The atmosphere was tense, and I could see thick smoke rising from the distance as the protester burnt who knows what. Amethyst. Amethyst. I raised my head at the quiet call. My eyes met my mate's, and without thought, I jumped out of my seat and flew into his arms. "You are all right," he whispered into my hair as the tears finally fell. I was mentally exhausted, but what could I do? I had to hold on. I felt selfish for crying like this, making him worry about me when he had too much to worry about already, but I couldn't let him go. I held on to him with all my might as I sobbed. We were there for a long time with me crying in his arms and him soothing me until I ran out of tears. I pulled away from him, sniffing and rubbing my eyes. "I am sorry," I muttered. "All this is happening because of me." I didn't think I was barren, but I now had a quiet voice in my head muttering, "What if? How is it your fault? We both know you are not barren. If anyone is at fault here, I am the one. It was I who spoke without first thinking." He kissed my forehead. Should we make one now?" I looked around my office. I had a couch that could fit us both, do you think it is wise to have a child now? Now when we have so many threats hanging on our necks? He asked, and I bowed my head. "Amethyst, we will have a child, but not now. I cannot bear to bring a child into this world, knowing that the man that killed my brother still roams free with all his power. What if he hurts our baby?" He massaged my hands and I nodded. "But then, the rumor, how do we?" "We will figure it out together, okay? But there is no need to have others push us into making hasty decisions. The protests will not last past tomorrow, and in time the masses will have something else to talk about." He had a cold smile on his lips when he mentioned the last part. "Yes, we will figure it out together." I wiped my tears. "I will even use this opportunity to get rid of more people working for Hawk." "That's the spirit." He kissed my temple. "Continue your purge and ignore this trivial matter." Killian. I lied. I told Amethyst not to worry, that the situation was simple, but it was not. In truth, I had sent 2 troops already, and they came back pelted with eggs and rotten tomatoes. The protesters were inching closer to the palace gates, and I knew that no matter how many warriors I sent to defuse the situation, the protest would only escalate into a full-blown riot. The protesters were quite daring, and it was clear they had a powerful sponsor, a sponsor powerful enough to give them the audacity to disobey royal orders. "Hawk, how do I clip your wings?" There was little I could do about the situation. Intimidation tactics would not work, as I could not subdue them with force, since that would be akin to declaring war on my people. The battlefield was much simpler than this nonsense called being a monarch. With troops, orders were non-negotiable, but it was different with ordinary wolves. "Your Majesty, Alpha Baal is here." The other alphas had conveniently disappeared at this crucial time. "I greet your Majesty the Alpha King." He bowed and I waved away his greeting. Baal was a simple and straightforward man who never hid his resentment for being dragged into the battleground called politics. "What do you have for me?" He handed over a stack of documents. "My beta and I have investigated the matter you left in our care." I scanned through the front page of the report. "We may not have been as thorough as your Majesty wants, but I hope your Majesty understands the limits of my power. The ministries firmly resisted our approaches, and we could not force cooperation. They still did well, and they were fast with the process." I let out a bark of laughter as I read through the report. Baal sat up straighter. His style of compiling the report was pretty simple. From what little I had read, it seemed one man had been set up to take the fall for his group. Alpha Fraser did all this on his own? From padded budgets to diverted funds and even stolen natural resources, there was a steady flow of public funds and assets into Alpha Fraser's pocket in the past decade. He single-handedly managed this for a decade without assistance from any other Alpha? I quirked a brow. Even funds meant for other ministries were diverted into his purse. "It is suspicious," Baal started after a moment of hesitation. "But all the evidence we gathered confirms it, your Majesty." "Even with this, you should know there is something missing." Embarrassment colored his cheeks as he bent his head. Indeed, there are a lot of suspicious activities, but no matter how much we investigated, we couldn't link anything to Alpha Elias or any other Alpha for that matter," Baal confessed. "Then I will have to implore you to dig even deeper into this matter." He scowled as I spoke. Excuse me, Your Majesty, but this is all I could find. I am a simple merchant and... He started, but I cut him off. Of course, I understand. You do not have the capacity to investigate other alphas, so I think I should ask Eliza. His expression darkened. Your Majesty, she is just a little girl. He looked pained, and I felt sorry for him. I truly did. But how could an alpha in the kingdom sit quietly while the kingdom fell apart around him? He had a duty to this kingdom, and I would not let him off the hook. As her father, I am sure she will continue to be only a little girl in your eyes, but as the king, I am someone who sees potential, and Eliza has it. I am sure she can conduct a more thorough investigation, I explained to him. No. He glared at me with reproach shining in his eyes. I know what your Majesty is doing. We are just a simple family. I had too much of a headache to listen to him whine. Let's cut to the chase, Alpha Bale. I leaned forward in my seat, bracing my elbows on my desk, feeling my patience run thin. The kingdom is on fire as we speak. There are plots to assassinate the monarch. His mouth fell open, but I ignored his comical expression. I am not dragging you into this because I enjoy having you glare at me. I need your strength, and as an alpha in this kingdom, you owe your support to your monarch, except you want to join the dissenters. No, of course not, he exclaimed in horror. Except you step down from your position as the alpha, there is no way for you not to get involved in the matters concerning this kingdom. He snapped his mouth shut. And if you think you are doing all this to protect your children, let me be the first to tell you that you are only limiting them. Open your eyes, Bale. Jack is one of the best warriors in the kingdom, and Eliza has readied herself to succeed you. They do not need you to hide them in the shadows. If you do not believe in your children, I believe in them. He bit into his bottom lips, his eyes shining with surprise. Your Majesty, you are surprisingly detailed with your report, so I must applaud you. The man wasn't incapable. He just wanted to live in a cocoon with his pack, free of all the worries of affairs external to his pack. For now, this should be good enough, but I need you to dig deeper. Fraser was not working alone, so he should not bear the repercussions alone. They will be alert in their deeds for now, so I expect you to be discreet with this investigation. If you care one bit about this kingdom, you can do this much. Yes. This time, he did not look at me like an invader snatching up his gold. I will try my best. Good. Now, I had something to distract the crowd, but for me, it was not enough to distract the people. I had to weed out the thieves that had the audacity to act high and mighty to even their king while they stole funds meant for the masses. They manipulated the evidence and made Fraser the lone culprit of their crimes, but hopefully the idiot would betray them as they have betrayed him. Causing confusion in the enemy's court was rather fun. Why are you smiling? Orion met me as I exited my office. I feel good, he frowned. Breakthrough? Breakthrough, I affirmed. Prepare a carriage. It is time I had a talk with the people cursing at my mate. Don't kill anyone, Orion said with a straight face, and I laughed. Death is inevitable for us all. We got to the scene where hundreds of people gathered. The loud, boisterous yelling quietened to a deafening silence as I stepped out of my carriage. The people closest to the carriage took several steps backwards. It was fortunate that they had the foresight to retreat. It was taking everything in me to restrain Styx. I was the Alpha King. I had to worry about the lives of these people, but my wolf was simpler than I was. Kill them all, he snarled. They insulted our mate. He was only concerned about his mate, and these people had insulted her. If they were warriors, they would have fallen as early as yesterday evening, when they had the bright idea of calling my mate slurs, but I had to pardon their stupidity, despite my wolf's rage. There was a collective greeting as I stepped out. The silence stretched as I ignored the greeting, and a small sect of people clustered at my far left opened their filthy mouths to start a chant. One look silenced them. By law, you would all be sinners resting your heads on the guillotine. A sharp intake of breath. But I will pardon your sins because I am a benevolent king. I smiled at the idiot closest to me, and he stumbled. Amethyst is my mate. It is insulting for me to stand here to confirm that fact to the idiots that have taken their king's words as lies. I can look past the insults to my person, but to my mate. Orion's sharp gaze bore into the side of my face. Styx was growling at me to forget my speech, but I held myself back. I cannot forgive you for insulting my mate. There was an outbreak of murmuring. The people at the back of the crowd tried to disperse, but warriors naturally closed in on them. Amethyst wears my mark, but you lot still dare to call her a fake. I would go to the high priestess to confirm our mate bond, but why should I? I am your monarch. You bow to me, not the other way round. I protected these idiots, but where was my thanks? My respect? You all will get on your knees and beg for her forgiveness. Some women rush to their knees. Not here. She is not here, is she? The Luna Queen could not come out of the palace because some idiots may have thrown things at her. I found myself laughing again. Then you all would be nothing but corpses littering the street. I tried to be magnanimous, to pardon their stupidity, but I found myself memorizing their faces, marking them off as my personal enemies. It was a level of pettiness I never knew I could descend to, but they insulted my mate, and I could not even put my hands on them. As for the matter of her being barren, another intake of breath. They acted as if they did not expect me to hear the nonsense they were shouting at the top of their lungs. If you must know, it is my decision not to have children in this unstable kingdom. They looked at me as if I was making things up. After all, how could I call the kingdom unstable when they themselves lived comfortable lives without knowing what went into making sure their lives remained comfortable? Yes, the kingdom is in crisis. There are plots of treason flying around. What? Someone exclaimed, but I ignored them. Yes, the Luna Queen is not barren, and before you start more useless rumors, I am not impotent either. A lady or two blushed. There are people plotting treason as we speak, and as a sane person, I am not inclined to bring a child into such a dangerous situation, not that you have the right to question me. But who? Someone asked, and murmurs broke out around me. His Majesty is a direct descendant of the first monarch blessed by the goddess. Is it even possible? Someone shouted from the back. I returned to the palace with light steps. This was enough to distract them for a day or two at most, before they returned under the claim that I was lying, so I gave them something to talk about. By the next morning, the entire kingdom knew that the Alpha Fraser was a thief who may face the death penalty. I felt good. Great even. Having a dependable mate was the best. He said the protests would not last past today, and true to his words, they didn't. In fact, aside from the prompt end to the protests, there were also rumors that Alpha Fraser had embezzled a staggering amount of money and may end up with his head severed from his neck. I went to bed that night with a smile on my face, missing Killian, who had to work into the night. The next morning, I walked with a spring in my steps, heading straight to the Emerald Annex. My mate came into the room well past midnight, and he was gone before the first cockcrow this morning, so I never got the chance to thank him for coming to my aid. Good morning. I entered his office with a smile that froze on my lips when I saw the weeping face of Esther Fraser. Please, Your Majesty, our children are young. She was literally holding on to my mate's legs, her face buried in his thighs. Killian had a frightening expression on his face as he glared at her. Your children are young. That's why I spared you. Or did you think I don't know? You are also involved in cheating the people you are supposed to lead. He flung her with his legs, but she came scampering back. Your Majesty, she exclaimed, rushing back to grab his legs. Amethyst. Killian was approaching me when she rendered him immobile by hanging onto his legs. In the end, he lost his temper and ordered his new guards to throw her out. I stepped out of the way as her frantic gaze landed on me. How are you? My mate asked after he successfully got rid of the hysteric woman. Great. He kissed my temple and I felt warm. Why did I ever doubt this man's love? That's good. Have you had breakfast? He grabbed my hand and I watched our entwined fingers. My wolf was going berserk at such a simple contact. No. Holding hands was such a mundane thing to do, so why did my heart feel so full just because he covered my hand with his? I rushed here to thank you. He had a soft smile on his lips when I raised my head from our entwined fingers. You can thank me by having breakfast with me. How does breakfast outdoors sound? I looked at the stacks of documents around the office and frowned. My wolf urged me to say yes, to agree, but it didn't look like he had the time to go out for breakfast. But aren't you busy? I glanced at the stacks of documents again. Who is busy? He snorted, pulling me with him as we exited his office. Breakfast in the garden was truly amazing. The air was clean and the food delicious. The view was also amazing. I mean, my mate was subjectively and objectively the best-looking man in the kingdom. "Are you going to eat, or did you come out here to stare at me?" he asked. "I can't do both," I asked, and he chuckled. "Don't let me stop you," he said, and I laughed. Watching him was amazing, but the more I stared at him, the more I saw the fatigue he tried to hide. His eyes were not as sharp as usual, and his movements were sluggish, not noticeable, but I stared so hard at him that I could not miss it. "You should sleep a bit more," I commented when he handed me a piece of buttered bread. "I will," he agreed without fuss, but it was nothing more than lip service. "I'm serious," I frowned. "I will," he insisted, pouring me a glass of grape juice. "What are you working on now?" "How can I help?" I offered eagerly. "Working on unearthing the mystery of my brother's death, trying to catch Hawk in the act of attempted treason, trying to shake off Scarlet, subduing Alpha Elias, appointing a new overseer of the finance ministry. There are a lot of things to be done outside the normal affairs of the Alpha King. It is quite a lot of work and too sensitive to hand over to someone else, but you can help me by dreaming of what exactly Hawk is hiding and how he is hiding so well." He smiled, but the smile was tired. "So you just want me to sleep," I muttered, feeling sour. He nodded and I pressed my lips together, knowing that was the best I could do. If only I could decide what I dreamt about. I went to sleep after breakfast, feeling a sudden helplessness that I tried not to dwell on. Seeing the future was an amazing gift, but how could I see it again? I wrote to Cedric before I slept. He once said he would coach me on how to use my magic so he may know how to help me control what I dreamt about. A few minutes after I fell asleep and dreamt of a cryptic meeting going on in Hawk's home, a loud commotion woke me up. "Miss, you cannot go in there," I heard Eliza shout. I must see Her Majesty." When I woke fully, I heard what was unmistakably the sound of someone hitting their head on a wall. Without a second thought, I rushed out to see Esther banging her head against a wall while Eliza and 2 maids tried to stop her. "Your Majesty." I narrowly avoided being toppled to the ground as she threw herself at me once I stepped out to assess the situation. "Your Majesty, please, save me, my family, my pack, please." She held my legs as she had done with Killian. She had a vice-like grip around me, and it was truly uncomfortable as she didn't let me go, no matter how much I struggled. Thankfully, Jack arrived in a bit and wrenched her off me. Jack held her by the scruff of her neck and shook her like a rag doll. "You shameless pile of horse shit. Why should Her Majesty save you from a pit you dug yourself? Were you not looking down your crooked nose at her the other day? Why should she help a two-faced, thieving bitch like you?" She shook her so hard that even I got dizzy. Please. "Let her go, Jack." Jack spared me a glance, looking like she would continue to shake the other woman. She let her drop to the ground in an unceremonious pile. "Please, I will do anything but please. My mate, please." She put her hands on the ground and buried her face in them before letting out a loud wail. A tangible number of people had come out to watch as she made a scene in front of my bedroom. By now, the entire kingdom should have heard the news that her mate was a thief, scheduled to be punished. "What is it you can do for me?" my wolf sneered at her. "Do you think you can bribe me with the money you stole?" She had joined hands with the other Lunas to insult me and my wolf at an event I organized, but now that she was in trouble, she ran to me, not the women she joined in bullying me. "Your Majesty, I will do anything you want me to do." I stared at her for a minute before inviting her inside. I was the last person to feel remorse for those that hurt me without apologizing, so I saw no reason to help her. Besides, this was not something I had control over. The punishment for stealing in the kingdom was to cut off the thief's hand, but for such a large-scale theft, it was not unusual to cut off the thief's head. I did not make the law, and I could not change it. "Start talking. What can you do for me?" I asked, my tone cold. "Anything you want. I will do anything." She looked at me with swollen, glistening eyes. "My mate, they framed him. It must be the doing of Elias and Rufus." She swallowed. "Do you have evidence of what you are saying?" She paused before giving a small nod. Don't think of deceiving me, Luna Esther, or you may join your beloved mate on the guillotine. I smiled, frost seeping into my tone. She froze, her eyes widening. Since you will do anything, then you won't mind bringing me information, would you? She nodded, her head bobbing early. Good. Depending on how useful your information is, I may be able to save your mate. Her eyes shone with determination. You know the people your mate worked with, and the idiot is too scared to confess. I snorted when Killian told me earlier that Fraser was a weak man who the other alphas used, but he refused to expose them. Whether because he was a foolishly loyal man or he feared them, I did not know, but his wife seemed smart enough. Right, I can postpone his sentence by a week. Her pupils quivered. So, you have a week to give me something useful. You understand, don't you? She nodded. Good. For us to lift your mate's sentence, we need to find the real criminals that framed him, don't you think? She nodded again. Luna Esther left the palace with her face set in hard lines and her tears dried. I felt bad. She would certainly try everything to fish out her mate's accomplices, but it was too bad Fraser could not escape death. Alpha Hawk arrived about an hour after we heard he had entered the capital. He was still dressed in mourning clothes, but he did not look like a man who just lost his mate. Rather, he looked like a man who just returned from a vacation. You are back earlier than we expected you, I greeted him at the entrance of the palace. I heard the woman who I sent to grace the Luna's gathering was thrown into the dungeons, he said in a curt tone. Do you not think it is insulting for a woman who is standing in place of the Luna of Dark Moon to be thrown into the dungeons like that? Have you considered how insulting that is to Dark Moon? As a person standing in place of Dark Moon, I hope Dark Moon is prepared to bear the consequences of the insults she hurled at the monarchy. I forced a gracious smile. If he thought I would back down, he did not know anything. As for insulting Dark Moon, I think Alpha Hawk has done a better job of insulting Dark Moon than I ever can. In fact, you have insulted your pack, your daughter, and your recently deceased Luna by sending such a vulgar woman to sit in her seat before she even gets cold in the ground. He maintained a neutral expression, although the depths of his eyes made it clear he wanted to do something drastic, like hit me. Where is the king? Why are you the only one to receive me? I snorted as he changed the subject, sounding as if I was not qualified to receive a guest like him. This will be the first and last time I come out to receive you, Alpha Hawk. As a person beneath me, I cannot treat you with much reverence. I am only here because I felt sorry for you. That's all. He masked his expression, but the aura around him darkened. A woman was walking towards us, her eyes on Hawk. She seemed timid, and my mouth fell open as she stopped in front of me. The carriage has been secured, she muttered to him. Scarlet came running out the second the woman appeared. Father? She exclaimed, and the woman flinched. As if feeling my eyes on her, she turned to me and her face contorted. You, she whispered, her eyes widening. What are you doing here? Her gaze jumped from me to Hawk and her expression closed off. Scarlet hugged her father, squeezing him to herself until he pushed her away. Have you been good? He asked, and she nodded, her gaze falling on the woman beside him. Who is she? Scarlet asked, sneering at the woman. This is Victoria, Hawk introduced her with a wave of his hand. Just then, Killian arrived with Orion. What's taking so long? Killian asked. I bickered with Hawk a bit, but our bickering did not last long enough for Killian to search for me, so I knew he purposely came here thinking he had to rescue me from the talons of such a dastardly man. I was thankful because my legs were about to give out under me. The woman standing beside Alpha Hawk was the same woman that I killed in my dream. In other words, she was my mother, and now I knew for sure that Hawk was my father. Amethyst, are you familiar with this man? Kalea asked me the first time she met Hawk. I remembered she said his wolf was familiar. I didn't take it as anything then. I didn't even remember until now. My wolf must have recognized his wolf as we were a family. The same way my almost dormant magic recognized the woman in front of me. My eyes almost rolled back in their sockets, but I held myself, unwilling to pass out. Killian suffered it as I gripped his hand, my nails digging into his skin. I greet your majesty, the Alpha King. Hawk gave an insincere bow. Killian, can we go in? Hawk's gaze cut to me, and my insides froze. Please, don't be suspicious. Please, don't be suspicious. It was clear he didn't know I was his child. The woman at his side did not tell him, and I wished for him to never find out. She gave me a concerned look. My mother. I gagged, staggering. Are we finally going to hear good news from the Luna Queen? Hawk asked, sarcasm dripping from his words. Luna Queen? The woman asked, horror painting her face. Alpha Hawk was really my father. I could not even afford to look at him, scared he would find even the slightest hint of resemblance between us. My stomach rolled and I gagged again. I forgot to introduce you. Victoria, this is His Majesty, Alpha King Killian and his mate, Luna Queen Amethyst. Your Majesties, this is Victoria. He introduced us as if our titles were jokes. Is there anyone in this kingdom who does not know their monarch? Killian asked, tilting his head to the side as he examined the woman. She gazed at him for a while, curiosity shining in her eyes. Killian's grip on my hand tightened. It was disrespectful to stare at an alpha the way she did. I tugged at my mate's hand before he said anything. Right, you need to rest. He put his hand around me. Is she all right? Scarlet asked in a falsetto. Killian spared her a glance, but ignored her question. Maybe His Majesty has decided the kingdom is stable enough for him to produce an heir, Hawk snorted. He was filled with jabs and sneers today. Is she pregnant? The woman asked, her gaze fixed on me. It is impossible for Her Majesty to be pregnant, Hawk answered. Your Majesty, can I see Luna Grace, please? I rushed all the way here when I heard you threw her into the dungeons. Dark Moon will not stay still after this insult. I would like to see what Dark Moon is capable of, Killian answered with frost in his voice. You should be ashamed of yourself, entertaining another woman before your mate goes cold in the ground. Let me worry about my shame. Focus on your unstable kingdom. Killian tilted his head to the side at the jab, and then a cold smile spread across his face. You have become interesting, he said, and then he laughed. The sound spread chill in the air, and Hawk froze, his complexion turning pale. Let's go see Luna Grace, Killian said. Amethyst. He was going to send me away, but I shook my head, not wanting to leave anymore. I wanted to leave, but I also wanted to stay. I just found my mother. There were so many things I wanted to say to her, but I couldn't say them here. I wanted to observe her a bit. I didn't want to separate from the parent I just found after over 2 decades. So I followed them to the dungeons, a place I had not entered since I let out Sabrina's brother. What is the matter? Your temperature keeps rising, Killian asked during the carriage ride to the dungeons. I looked up at Orion, who was stuck in the carriage with us. He averted his gaze and cleared his throat. He was Killian's trusted beta, but how much could he know? It's just, I met an unexpected person. I rested my head on his shoulder and he let the conversation end there. We got to the dungeons and Orion exited the carriage first. I turned to Killian, stopping him before he stood. She's my mother, I whispered, leaning into him. He froze. So he must be my father. I closed my eyes as I admitted it. Why? Just why did I have to be so unfortunate? Are you sure? He asked as he stiffened. I nodded, wishing I was wrong, but knowing I was right. Orion poked his head in, so we had to exit the carriage. Luna Grace was kept in the dirtiest and smallest cell in the dungeons, and Silver held her shackled, limiting her movements. What is the meaning of this? Hawk shouted, but Killian snorted. For the crime of insulting the Luna Queen, she would have been beheaded on the spot, but we kept her alive as a sign of respect to Dark Moon, Orion answered. As she entered the palace as a seat filler for the Luna of Dark Moon will naturally answer for her crimes. She is a Luna. How can you keep her in such a place? It almost seemed as if Hawk cared about the woman. Yes, the Luna of Red Lake Pack, which is a small, insignificant pack which no one would ever have heard of if the Luna Queen did not come from that pack. I felt Victoria's eyes boring into me from the side, but every time I looked at her, she averted her gaze. Alpha Hawk, she called the Luna Queen slurs and attacked her. In case you have forgotten, harming a member of the royal family is considered treason. As she entered the palace because of you, your pack will have to answer for treason-related offenses. Orion finished. Treason? The woman is fine, Hawk exclaimed, glaring at me. If anything had happened to her, Dark Moon would have crumbled, Killian murmured. Consequences be damned. Let her go, Hawk snapped, but Killian glared at him. If you annoy me, I may behead her right here." His mouth closed at Killian's growl. "You have seen her, so let us return to the palace to determine your punishment for letting this eyesore into the palace." Grace finally raised her head as we turned to leave. Her eyes cut to me, and despite them being almost swollen shut, she still glared at me with hatred shining in her dim eyes. A.N. Is there anyone reading this? Luna Grace was not released. Despite Hawk's furious threats, she stayed there for 3 extra days, and Dark Moon had to pay a hefty fine to get her out of the dungeons, and now they had treason on their record. It was a light punishment compared to what Killian planned, but we had to tread carefully with the explosive called Alpha Hawk. While all these happened, I tried to speak to Victoria, my mother, but she was more elusive than I expected. It was clear that she was avoiding me. The more days that passed, the more awful and resentful I felt. She abandoned me. The least she could do was to tell me why. Did she not owe me that much, considering how much I suffered because of her decisions? I mean, of all the men in this world to be involved with, why did she choose the scum called Hawk? Is there a reason you are ruining the atmosphere with your sneers and frowns? I snapped at Mary as she moved around with a grumble. I expected that after the other day, I would get her on my side, but she came today with a cloudy expression and looked at me as if I killed her pet. At first, I was relieved that she didn't switch camps easily, appreciating her loyalty to Scarlet, but if she was going to be this difficult, there was no reason to keep her around. I had enough difficulties without adding a maid that hated the air I breathed. "I am sorry, Your Majesty. I am tired today, that's why," she said without an ounce of sincerity. "Since you are so tired, you may leave," I said. "Call Rose on your way out and don't bother coming back here. There's no reason to keep an ungrateful mutt by my side." She left without a backward glance, and I sighed. Maybe Ella was wrong after all. Maybe Mary would serve Scarlet till her last breath. I didn't want to bother about her, but her behavior worsened my already foul mood. Eliza watched me with apprehension as I worked. I couldn't tell her the reason for my foul mood these days. Revealing one secret would be akin to revealing all, as my secrets were tightly woven. If I told her of my mother, she would learn about my father, possibly my hybridity. The less people that knew, the better. Someone knocked on the door and she went to check, returning with Cedric, who, for some reason, was red-faced. "Did you run here?" I asked, and to my surprise, his face reddened further. No." My brows raised in alarm. Since when did this cocky bastard start to stutter? "What's wrong with you, then?" I asked, and he lowered his head. Nothing." I rolled my eyes. His weird behavior made me even more upset. It seemed the world was out to annoy me that day. "Shall I call for refreshments?" Eliza asked, glancing at Cedric in concern. He spared her a glance and reddened more. "There is no need for refreshments." I looked Cedric up and down. He avoided my gaze. "Eliza, please, give us a moment." "Yes, Your Majesty." Eliza left the room with Cedric's gaze trailing after her. "Is it love at first sight?" He raised his head and pursed his lips at my question. "With a wolf? What nonsense are you spouting?" He shook his head, the red in his cheeks fading. "Good. It better not be love, since it would never work." I snorted and he glared at me. "Why? What's wrong with me?" He frowned, his eyes going to the door again. "It's not you. It's me. I will be an obstacle if you even dream of pursuing anything with Eliza." "I didn't know you had your sights set on me," he said with sarcasm hanging on his words. "Not even in your dreams," I sneered. "Eliza is my friend and you are not good enough." Yes. Eliza was pure and open, everything this manipulative man in front of me could never be. "I am a shadow mage," he hissed, his expression contorting. I seemed to have uttered the harshest insult from the way he reacted. "Do you know how rare shadow mages are? As rare as one in a century." "Shadow mages may be rare, but lying, manipulative men are everywhere, so don't think you are special." I didn't back down despite his ferocious glare. It was nothing compared to Killian's anyway. "Why are you here?" He mumbled something with a sneer before responding. "I got your letter. Aunt Victoria is here?" He reminded me of the source of my irritation. "In the palace?" "Yes, she's here." I was under the same roof as my mother, but she refused to see me. We hardly crossed paths, but when we did, she excused herself. Every time I sent Ella to her, she always had the same thing to say. "The woman is busy." I could not press her harder to avoid suspicion, so I let her be. What sort of mother was she? If Mother Crystal could recognize me, there was no way my mother would not have recognized me, so why did she not want to speak to me? "Calm down," my wolf said, but I could not calm myself. "Why does she hate me?" I asked. It was a thought I didn't want to dwell on, because with that thought came a hand squeezing my heart. Why was I not good enough for my mother? Why did she abandon me? Why was she avoiding me even now? What did I ever do to her to make her distance herself from me like this? Rather than dwell on the sadness and pain that came with these thoughts, I chose to be angry. It was easier to be angry than to admit I was hurt. You are telling me that after decades of searching for her, she suddenly showed up at the palace? Are you sure she is the one? I glared at Cedric, who questioned me with disbelief in his narrowed eyes. "Let's go," I stood. "See for yourself." Despite how I tried to ignore her the way she ignored me, it was impossible. These days, the first thing I did every time I opened my eyes was to take a deep breath. I told myself it was for cleansing, but it was to catch that sharp scent of magic that I associated with my mother. Others may not know that scent was the scent of magic, but I did, since I had noted it when I visited my mother's coven. I'd committed her scent to memory in just 3 days, so I traced her to the garden of the main palace. She froze once I entered with Cedric, as if she too could scent me. She pretended not to notice us as we entered the garden, but I watched her like a hawk, as did Cedric. "Hello," I called, forcing her to look at us. "Nice weather, eh?" "I greet your Majesty, the Luna Queen." She gave a bow, raising her head before I said anything. "I was about to leave the garden, so if you will excuse me." Cedric blocked her before she finished speaking. "Aunt Victoria?" She froze again but said nothing. "Amethyst, are you sure?" He looked at her. No, he peered at her like a fascinating bug. "Sir, if you will excuse me." She stepped to the side, but he blocked her. "I can see you have magic, but it doesn't seem like Aunt Victoria's." He continued to peer at her. Cedric was rude enough to block her every time she tried to step away. "Sir," she exclaimed when he blocked her for the 4th time. "You look nothing like Aunt Victoria," he murmured. "Can you let me pass?" she shouted. "Why do you keep avoiding me?" I told myself I would never ask, that I would not beg for her affection, but the words slipped from my lips, and I was mortified at how desperate and wretched they sounded. She turned to me, her expression blank. "I do not know what you mean, Your Majesty." She turned to Cedric and then back to me. These people, you should stay away from them." "Why is that? Why do you care who I hang out with?" I snarled, bitterness seeping out of my pores. "You are right. What Your Majesty does is none of my concern." She raised her chin, and my heart fell to my stomach. "How long are you going to keep up this pretense, Mother?" I asked. She met my gaze for a second, before turning and walking away without a backward glance. My lips quivered, so I bit into my bottom lip, clenching my fists at my sides to hold myself together, to stop myself from screaming. An invisible hand squeezed my heart, and my stomach felt light and empty. A familiar cold spread inside me as I drew blood from my lips to stop them from trembling. "I don't think that's Aunt Victoria," Cedric said, a frown in his voice. My vision blurred and I stumbled. "Hey." He wrapped his hand around my waist before I hit the ground. "Are you crying?" he exclaimed. I was. Like a dam, the tears broke free, pouring down my cheeks. "What did I do?" I heard myself ask. "Why would she leave me like that?" "Hey, now, Amethyst." One part of my brain registered Cedric's flustered words. I knew I was acting out of character, but even Noah's rejection did not squeeze my heart as much as my mother's rejection did. All my life, I tried to give her excuses, reasons a mother would have to abandon her infant. I never met her, so it was easy to tell myself she may be sorry wherever she was. She may be sorry and missing me, but one thing or the other kept her from approaching me. I never left Red Lake, partly because I had nowhere to go and because I was waiting for my mother. This woman, how could she be so cruel? Did she hate my face? Was that why she changed hers? But none of it was my fault. If anything, it was hers, so why did she have to hate me? Why did she leave me in Red Lake to be mistreated and abused? "Amethyst, I am not sure she's your mother," Cedric coaxed awkwardly. "Her magic seems different, so it is." He wiped my tears, but they fell faster. "What did you do to her?" I raised my head and caught sight of my mate through blurry eyes. "Thank the goddess you are here," Cedric sighed. "I asked a question." Killian was growling as he stalked forward. "Why is she crying?" He pulled me from Cedric's arms and I buried my face in his chest. "She hates me," I answered for Cedric. "How could anyone hate you?" Killian muttered in a soft tone. "What did you do to her, Cedric?" He growled again. "I did nothing," Cedric mumbled. "The woman with Hawk refused to speak to her and she is convinced that she is her mother." "How dare she?" my mate mumbled, the temperature dropping. "Forewarning, if you want to speak to her, then she has no choice." I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, and he no doubt was thinking of how to punish the woman, my mother. Let her be. I raised my head from his chest, wiping my eyes with my sleeve. It's just hurtful that... When I looked past my mate, I realized we had gathered a small crowd. Following my gaze, Killian turned, and the crowd dispersed in the blink of an eye. I could only think of what new rumor would follow me in the next few days. "Let's go inside," Killian urged, taking my hand and leading me inside. We entered our chambers, and I flopped into bed, embarrassed that I cried because of a woman that did not even spare me a thought. Why couldn't I abandon her as she abandoned me? What was so special about having a mother that I had to cling to such a woman because I wanted one? My mind had classed Victoria as the same sort as Hawk. It didn't matter that they were my parents. They were my enemies now. "Amethyst," Killian took my hand, massaging it. "You can demand an audience with her. It will be impossible for her to refuse an audience with you." It was even more embarrassing to think of forcing an audience with someone who wanted nothing to do with me. If she didn't want to have anything to do with me, it was better for me to let her out of my heart rather than continue pursuing her. "It's fine," I mumbled, but Killian was not convinced. He, more than anyone else, knew how desperate I was to have a conversation with my mother. After all, for the last 3 days I nagged and nagged about it, so how could he not know? Or I can call for her. If she could not refuse an order from the Luna Queen, then it would be even more impossible for her to refuse Killian's order. It's no use. She hates me, and even if she tells me why, what would I do? Try to remove whatever it was about me that made her hate me, but she hated me since I was born. So what chance did I have of pleasing such a person? In the end, we both went back to our duties. I couldn't forget the bitter encounter with my mother, but I tried to brush it off. As long as she never told Hawk I was his child, there should be no issue. Since she did not want to recognize me as hers, there was little chance of her admitting it to Hawk. The next day, Mary entered my chambers, and I sighed. "Do you want to get kicked out of the palace?" I asked as she entered. She looked nervous, yet determined, her posture slack but eyes shining. "I pledged my loyalty to Miss Scarlet," she started, swallowing thickly. "That's good. The two of you can leave the palace together. I already started planning on throwing the Hawks out. After all, they only got the privilege to stay in the palace because their daughter was the prospective Luna Queen. But I pledged that loyalty to the future Luna Queen, not Scarlet Hawk." I sneered at her as she bowed her head. "And now you are the Luna Queen. I am the Luna Queen, yet you have the temerity to barge into my chambers." She was lucky Jack wasn't here, else she would have received a verbal and physical beating. "I snuck in because I knew your majesty may not let me come in." She raised her head and stared at me head-on, as if daring me to refute her words. Amazing. Why did no one ever respect me as Killian's mate? "Get out," I snapped, losing my patience. "Please, your majesty, this is important." Her determination morphed into desperation. "I gave you a chance, but you rejected it. I do not require your service, so get out." I pointed to the door. "Look at this." She hastily produced a finger-sized bottle. "This is poison." My blood froze. She asked me to put this in your tea. I leaned away, despite being a suitable distance away from her. "What? Get that away from me!" At my exclamation, Jack, who seemed to have returned, barged into my room, seizing Mary by the scruff of her neck. "How did this rat get in here? Weren't you discharged of your duties the other day?" She wiggled about as Jack held her off the ground. Your Majesty, please, tell her." She choked, grabbing Jack's hand to no avail. "How dare you?" I did not dare go close, but my blood boiled. "You joined them in plotting to kill me?" I screamed, my head hot. "And no, I brought this to show my sincerity. Of course, I would never do such a thing. She struggled against Jack's hold as my heart beat from my throat and my chin trembled. My nostrils flared and I gritted my teeth to stop my chin from trembling. Jack, let her. Let us hear what she had to say. Jack let her drop, delivering a quick kick to her side as she fell to the ground. She groaned, curling up in a ball. With quivering legs, I walked over to them. Picking up the bottle, I froze, as did my wolf, feeling signs of magic on the bottle. "Scarlet gave you this?" I asked, and Mary nodded, exhaling in pain as she raised her head. "Your Majesty, I would never. I have served Miss Scarlet for years, and she has been good to me, but this, she obviously wants my head to be cut off." She pressed her forehead to the ground. "I can no longer serve such a master, so if you can still give me a chance." Her voice shook along with her shoulders. "Get up." She raised her head at my order. Then she staggered to her feet. "Prepare tea." "What?" She looked from me to Jack. "Are you deaf?" "Prepare tea for Her Majesty," Jack yelled in her face. "Why, yes." She rushed out of the room, sweat beading her forehead. "What are you planning, Your Majesty? Shouldn't we take this to His Majesty?" Jack whispered, reaching for the bottle. "No." I held the bottle out of her reach. "Today the Luna Queen has to be poisoned." I wasn't actually foolish enough to drink poison. "I am sure you know that whether or not I drink this, you are dead meat." I chanced a glance at Mary. "I considered making you the head maid, but you chose to grab a rotten rope." I pretended to shake my head in pity. I was foolish. Mary had tears in her eyes. At least she understood the gravity of the situation. I chose the wrong master to serve. Her master would cut her off without a backward glance. You should be glad. She trusted you enough to give you such a task. As her biggest fan, shouldn't this make her happy? Tears rolled down her cheeks, but I didn't have it in me to stop. I'd been cautious enough to go around with Jack, but poisoned food was not something I could guard against. Would I ever be able to eat in this palace without fear of vomiting blood? Mary poured my tea and then stepped aside. I brought out the bottle of poison and Jack mumbled a cuss. With the way my hands shook, one would think I was already poisoned. I was terrified out of my mind as I opened the lid of the bottle, cautious of spillage. Then I tipped the bottle over my cup of tea. The three of us in the room watched with bated breaths as a drop of green liquid dropped from the bottle into my teacup. After that, I shook the bottle, but nothing else came out, so I set it aside. The minute the bottle touched the table, it vanished. What in the goddess' name was that horse crap? Jack's exclamation made me jump. Did that bottle just disappear?" she yelled. I swallowed as Mary yelped, slapping herself hard across the face. What the hell is this?" Jack seized Mary again. This time, the girl did not struggle. She stared with her mouth open at the spot where the tiny bottle disappeared from. It's okay." I swallowed through the thick lump in my throat. Touching my throat, I closed my eyes for a second to calm my racing heart. It was not everyday things vanished into thin air. Although I sensed the magic on the bottle, I did not, even in my wildest imagination, imagine the bottle would disappear. "Your Majesty, we have to hang this wench. She's clearly a sorceress out to harm the royal family." Jack slammed Mary against a wall. "My mother made this." What else had she made for Hawk? Was she the reason he always felt untouchable, invisible? It was high time I accepted that both my parents were the reincarnations of evil. She made this poison, and she must have known that it would be used against me. My parents were trying to kill me. "Goddess, I am sorry," I said in my heart. "I prayed so hard and cursed your name because I wanted my family, but all along you had been protecting me from them." I never felt more religious than I did then. If it is not too much, please take them away. If I knew the kind of people in my family, I would have prayed to never meet them. I would have offered as many offerings as I could in the temple to make sure I never crossed path with them. "Your Majesty," Jack exclaimed, but I kept my eyes closed in prayers. "Please, protect me from their hands and punish them for their evil ways." "Jack, let her go." I opened my eyes with a deep breath. "Are you crazy? Let her go? Is it until she pokes a dagger into your stomach before you realize how dangerous she is?" she snarled. "I am taking her to His Majesty." "Don't get on my nerves." My words were cold. A certain chill spread inside me. For the first time in a long time, the world around me turned gray, bleak and mournful. Let her go. I sighed as I shook my head to dislodge the avalanche of self-pity about to drown me. What a life you live, Carrot, I muttered to myself. What a fate you are tied to. But, Jack started, but I cut her off with a growl. Have a bit of respect for once and let her go, I snapped. Fine, she snarled, flinging Mary away. If you are suicidal, then there's no point in guarding you. She stalked towards the door. Do you think Mary, a mere maid, would be able to procure this kind of a thing? She paused as I spoke. It's clear that I don't think. Aren't I the dumb one? The only thing I can do is pound my fists like a barbarian. Flames sparked in her eyes. If you will. Are you really going to leave me after this? I thought we were friends. She whirled back with a glare again. Friends? I have no friends. Besides, how can a lowly thing like me be friends with a being as high and mighty as the Luna Queen? Sarcasm dripped from her words. If you want to die... No, I don't want to die. Why would I want to die? What would happen to my mate if I die? I cut her off, feeling anxious. I understand you are angry for me, but don't direct your anger at the wrong person. If Mary didn't warn me about this, I would have been poisoned to death. I was grateful to Mary. Scarlet trusted her with this, and even though helping me was also helping herself, I was glad she made this choice. She could have thrown the poison away and kept mute, then Scarlet would have used someone else and I would never know. Scarlet would have used someone else if not Mary, so stop blaming her and start blaming Scarlet. I peered into my cup of tea. It looked no different from the hundreds of cups I had drank since I entered the palace. Now I need your help. Someone has to raise the alarm that I've been poisoned. Your Majesty, what about me? Mary asked, kneeling at the side. No doubt if investigations started, she would be thrown into the dungeons. Don't worry, I won't let you die, I assured her. I need you to stick to Scarlet for as long as possible. In case she tried to poison me again. I'll protect you, but from now on, make sure you don't leave the palace without alerting me and be careful of what you eat, okay? Because now Scarlet would try to kill her to erase the evidence that didn't disappear on its own. You are sure? She asked me with wide eyes. I helped you, so please. If you can't take my words for it, then get out, I said. No, I believe you. Good. Now I am going to faint, and the both of you are going to raise as much attention as you can. They nodded, albeit with reluctance. The cup of poisoned tea in front of me, I let my head fall back as the two of them rushed out of the room and began to yell. Jack yelled the loudest, and in minutes there were people rushing into my chambers. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! I recognized Harold's voice, but I didn't open my eyes. What happened? It was Scarlet that spoke this time, grabbing my hands. Why is she like this? Why is my friend like this? She screamed. It's this tea. She took a sip and then... Get out of my way! A chill raced down my spine. I realized a bit late that I should have let Killian know before I started my drama. Amethyst. He lifted me off the seat. Amethyst. My heart ached at his choked whisper. Open your eyes. I almost did, but there were too many people. Your Majesty, Her Majesty has been poisoned. We have to begin treatments before the poison spreads, Harold was saying while Scarlet sobbed. Ha! Okay. He stepped away willingly. Orders were issued for the cup of tea to be investigated, and I was moved to the bed. Who served this cup? Silence enveloped the room. Was it you? It seemed Mary may meet a gruesome end before the play even started. What do I do? Your Majesty, there is something you need to know, Jack said. Her Majesty and I were discussing something before this, and I think you should know. What is it? Say it fast, Killian growled, his wolf's anger leaking into his tone. It is best discussed in private, Jack insisted. Thankfully, Killian listened to her and everyone was chased out of the room. I heard mumbles from the side of the room as Harold attended to me and then, Amethyst Kalea Caelestis, you will not be the death of me. I fought back a grin. I was in a coma for 3 days. To keep up the pretense of being half dead, I never left the room and only Killian, Jack, and Harold were allowed in. The physician already realized I was not poisoned, but he came and went to maintain appearance. How is the situation outside? Killian moved his work to the bedroom and Jack delivered mine, so we spent all the time working together in silence. The whole kingdom is abuzz with your news. People are saying you died. Good. I grinned. What do you mean by that? He slammed his hand down on his desk. Do you know how worried I was? Why this ruse? Despite knowing I wasn't actually dying, that there was nothing wrong with me, Killian was still on edge. I didn't blame him. I was also on edge, knowing how bad things could have turned out. But Killian, I already explained it. They have to keep believing we don't know anything. Wouldn't it make things more interesting? They were waiting for news of my death. Soon, Hawk would move the motion for Killian's remarriage. Maybe it was the reason Killian refused to leave this room. Amethyst, you could have died. He took in a deep breath and let it out with a sigh. I could have, but I didn't. Remember, I am not actually poisoned, I said, watching him scrub a palm down his face. His eyes were red when next he looked at me. He was scared. I saw it on his face and how he never agreed to leave my side. I couldn't say anything because I was scared too. If things had been even slightly different, if I never tried to win Mary over, I didn't want to think too far, but having him by my side made me feel safe, comforted. I was about to fall asleep when I heard Orion's voice. There is no hint of poison in the cup Her Majesty took, but it's suspicious since, when tested, the tea proved deadly, Orion was saying. The poison experts want to close the investigation since they can't find any trace of poison, but I'm telling them it may be a poison they are unfamiliar with, so they should continue the investigation. You are doing well, Killian responded. We have to figure out what type of poison she used. I will do any and everything within my power to catch the culprit. Has the woman in the dungeons confessed? I didn't hear Killian's response. How is Her Majesty? Still unresponsive. She will be fine, Orion tried to encourage, but he sounded dubious. I didn't blame him. Without knowing the poison, no antidote could be administered, so everyone believed I would die soon. I kept my eyes closed, thinking of how the poison bottle disappeared the other day, and now there was no trace of poison in the tea after a series of investigations. How long did Victoria train to become this good at making deadly poisons? There was a knock on the door after Orion left, so I did not dare open my eyes. When I caught the scent of the woman that entered the room, I froze. Did she come to finish me off? Why are you here? Killian growled. Your Majesty, how is she? Victoria stuttered. Is there anything I can do to help? Do? Killian sneered. Do you have an antidote? He asked, and to both our surprise, she answered in the affirmative. You have the antidote? Killian could not hide his surprise. How do I know this isn't another poison? No, I will taste it in your presence. I turned my head to peek at them and caught her tilting her head back as she drank from the bottle. You may have taken an antidote before coming here, so I cannot take your word, so leave. Killian pointed at the door. Your Majesty, please don't. Even if she wakes up on her own, the poison, it's deadly. She may never be the same again. I heard the desperation in her voice and it made me frown. What did she care if I was never the same? This was the same woman that abandoned me at birth and refused to speak to me all these days. Why do you care? Killian spoke my mind. We are all pretending not to know your identity, so keep pretending. I don't trust you, so I cannot receive anything from you. His words dripped with annoyance. But please, just take it. She shoved the bottle in his direction, and he growled. You made an antidote without knowing the poison, so you must have been the one who made the poison in the first place. How can you connive with that bastard to kill your own daughter? Even a dog values its young. From then on, filthy insults poured out of his mouth and my brows twitched. Sometimes I forgot he spent a tangible amount of his time in the pan around warriors. His vocabulary was as colorful as Jack's as he cursed out the woman who birthed me. Your Majesty, sir, please. My mother endured his insults until it became too much. You can continue to cuss at me, but give her the antidote, please, for her safety. Did you or did you not hear me when I said that I cannot give my mate an antidote from a strange person who tried to kill her in the first place? As he spoke, there was a knock on the door, and Killian gave the person at the other end permission to enter. Cedric and Mother Crystal entered. Mother Crystal was rushing to my side, so I quickly closed my half-opened eyes, but Killian stopped her. And who are you? He demanded. Mother Crystal, it was Victoria that spoke. There was silence in the room, but I fought the urge to open my eyes to peek. "Cedric, is this woman Victoria?" Crystal asked. "Yes, that's what Amethyst believes." A loud smack echoed in the room and my eyes flew open. Crystal, the small woman, had hit Victoria. Where have you been and whose face are you wearing?" Crystal vibrated with anger. "Madam, I don't know." Another smack. "Can you stop hitting me?" Victoria exclaimed. "I am disappointed in you, Victoria. I tried to make up excuses for you, but if you really made this poison to kill your daughter, then I can never forgive you. Oh, is this the antidote?" Crystal fumed as she plucked the bottle from Victoria. I wasn't trying to kill her." Victoria bent her head. "You weren't trying to kill her, but you were trying to kill someone. How could you use forbidden magic, Victoria? Did I never teach you anything?" Killian caught my eye as an unexpected drama played in front of us. He made me. "Yes, excuses. You could not have said no, could you?" Crystal sneered, and to my surprise she smashed the bottle. "Mother Crystal!" Cedric and Victoria exclaimed at the same time. "I have prepared an antidote myself, so yours is not needed." Crystal hissed, and then she walked over to me again, or at least, she tried to. Killian caught her before she got to me. "Who are you?" I heard him ask as I rushed to close my eyes. "Oh, I greet your Majesty the Crown. What is the proper greeting? Anyway, I received your letter, so I made an antidote." Killian wrote to her. "I am sorry to have ignored your correspondences so far, but I am in bad shape. Here is the antidote. I will taste it, so you are sure it is not poison." She spoke impatiently. "The antidote takes 3 days to brew, that's why it took me this long to get here. Let's feed it to her now." There was silence in the room, some shuffling, and then a cold object touched my lips. I didn't want to take an antidote when I was never poisoned, so I did not swallow it. In keeping with my acting, I slowly opened my eyes to see those standing around me. "The antidote takes 6 hours to work," Cedric deadpanned when my eyes were fully opened. "Amethyst, you lying, manipulative woman." He flung my words from before back at me. "You made us all worry for nothing." I was so worried. Mother Crystal laid her head on my arm. "Why are the kids these days so naughty? What sort of prank is this? How could you?" "I did get poisoned." Guilt tightened my chest when Mother Crystal started to lament. "I just never drank from the cup since the maid confessed before I did." "It's not safe for you here," Cedric butted in. "Since it has gotten to this, the palace isn't safe for you, so come with us." "She's not going anywhere," Killian and Victoria exclaimed at the same time.